Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in today, and a bit of a surprise show because we've got some Seahawks news percolating out there. First, we had the Jaxon Smith-Njigba news. That is the big news, of course, of the day that landed earlier on the massive record-breaking contract extension. And then, of course, we've also got here at the end of the day now the announcement that the Seattle Seahawks, surprisingly, are going to be matching the offer sheet that was signed by Jake Bobo. The Jacksonville Jaguars didn't, in fact, put a poison pill in the deal, contrary to the rumors out there. And so Seattle is going to be able to bring Jake back on a 2-year contract extensions with some incentives laden on in there. And that would mean that your Seattle Seahawks wide receiver room is set. You've got a multitude of guys now under multiple years of deal. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, Tory Horton, Jake Bobo. I mean, my goodness, you've even got Cody White signed onto the roster right now. Ricky White, you got all the Whites. Everyone. So you're pretty well probably stacked up, which can mean a couple of different things as we go forward here and looking at how they're going to try to build this roster back up into being a Super Bowl contender. Not that it isn't already well suited to become that, but that this is, of course, a yearly experience and how John tries to situate all of this stuff just right to make it happen. And every new team is unique, even if you're bringing along a lot of the guys from the prior year on this one. So this is one where it means now that there's nothing else in free agency you're going to sign as far as wide receivers go. I would all but guarantee you're probably not going to be doing anything in the draft as far as the wide receiver room. It would seem that John's not super big on the wide receivers in this draft. I think this is a pretty good size tell at this point. It could maybe mean, though, that maybe they're a little bit worried about Horton's health, and we'll see on that too with this. But I would reckon in a guess, which is what we're trying to do here. This does mean everything is set in, and now you do have your starters, you got your special teams guys, you got your burners. I mean, this is kind of a wide receiver room that I think is one of the more now highly paid wide receiver rooms in the sport, yes, but also one of the more unique ones you'll ever find. You know, you've got Gandalf there, you know, with Kupp over on his side of things, and you're kind of mixing in a little bit of like a, you know, almost a young Ken Griffey in there with Jaxon Smith-Njigba and what he's doing. You've got then Rashid Shaheed, who's like, you know, the Flash on the side of it out there and what he's bringing. Then you got Jake Bobo, who's kind of a do-it-all guy, including the special teams part he brings in. And then you got the young pup, the young, you know, nobody knows quite what he's going to be, but there's a lot there. He's got a lot inside him that could be getting ready to tear the lid off. You know, you had Kubiak last year being asked about Tory Horton, and he was kind of casual when asked about who he might compare to. And he's like, I don't know. He kind of reminds me of a guy in Minnesota, you know, reporter kept pressing. I don't know, it just reminds me of somebody. I don't know, I just don't want to say it. It just kind of reminds me of somebody. Reporter kept pressing. He's kind of Justin Jefferson, okay? He reminds me a little bit of Justin Jefferson. So we've also got Horton, the young phenom who could just even cement this even further. It's talented. Yes, it's expensive. Yeah, you're paying for some of that talent you have. But this is no more a talented wide receiver core in the league. And you're doing this for a very good reason, because I understand on the surface of this, it would look like you're putting this into the receiver room and you're not going to now put the resources into the rushing attack and running game. That a deal like Walker has to come at the expense of signing a Rashid Shaheed. I don't think it's as much about that. I think that you could have done both of those two deals. This is more, I think, a push towards John having a philosophy drifting in this direction of things. He's always been a guy that's favored, it would seem, wide receivers and skill position players, specifically at the wide receiver position, above all else, even running backs, and how he's always structured this team. But I think even more so in recent years, he's really been pushed in this direction because there's a time and place when you're going to need him. There's going to be either of the two Rams games where you're going to have to throw a little bit, and you actually need the talent on the outside to get it done, where you can't just always lean and lay on your rushing attack to go get the job done. You got to have those guys out there who can win, who can create separation, who are great fits for this offense, and who all fit into what is all very much an important role. The burner to take the coverage off, to keep the coverages in those cover two shells, to make sure that if you're going to drift towards the double teams in Jackson's direction, we will punish you with it with this guy when he gets single coverage. And Jaxon, the world beater who can do it all, who can give you run any route in the book, who can be great after the catches. We've seen surprisingly that part of his game's grown, has become an outside receiver as that part of his game's grown. And you've got a lot of that intermixed with Cooper Kupp, who's just so smart and understands defenses right and left and techniques and different points of leverage and how to run the option routes. And you can only wonder now with him and Sam, especially having now a second year together on the practice field, along with all the rest of these guys, how much better they'll be because of it. So can it still become one of the best wide receiver cores in the league at that point, even if you don't throw as much? Yes, because it really comes down to efficiency. Can this group be efficient? And when you look at them across the board, I think to a man, receiver by receiver here, all of them were very efficient players last year, specifically in what they did with that portion of their game. Now, I do want to address a part of this a little bit off the top in regards to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, because I do see some pearl clutching. I do see some folks, trying to do some math on how can you pay the receiver this $42 million. And it's this agent game that they play. I mean, they are hypnotists. Because I tell you, they will somehow or another every time find a way to kind of twist the fans' heads, because this all comes out of the agents. It's all released initially, these numbers from the agents. And yes, there is a little bit of a guessing game here, but these are going to be around the final numbers that we're going to find where everything sits. And those numbers see him at $42.5 million. But I think there's a lot more to unpack on this deal. And forgive me if it takes a little bit of time to go through this, but I think that we got to really look the deal all the way through on this. As my cat starts crying. So, first part of this is that you're not taking the last 2 years of Jaxon Smith's rookie deal and tearing it apart and now creating a new contract of 4 years at $42 million. Let's keep that part of it in mind here first off. Second off, let's keep in mind the fact that agents are going to want to twist around their contracts on deals for their players as quickly as possible to get back on to having another opportunity, another bite at the apple, if they can do so. So they want to stay usually in kind of a 4-year deal type of territory. Now, 3 years is often where GMs want to live, but agents like that 4-year territory because you're going to come around every couple of years being able to come back up to the table and ante up and say, pay me again, especially if your client's good, especially if your client's really young. See, Jaxon only barely turning 24 years of age. So when you look at this deal, understand first and foremost, as we dive into the numbers of it, the first 2 years of the last of his contract remain where they're at. They're not new numbers. These are going to stay on where they were. So the 4th year of his first round contract and the 5th year of his first round contract, that's $10.3 million next year. And that's $15.6 million next year, the year after that. And if you'll notice, you're hearing no release on this, even from the agents themselves. And it was the agents that gave Adam Schefter and confirmed the numbers on this deal. You're not hearing anything about the bonus money. Isn't that kind of weird? Isn't that kind of odd that you're not hearing anything about the fact that here's the bonus, here's the guarantees. You're hearing just about these guarantees. Why? Because this is the part of the deal that the agent's hanging their hat on. Is there going to be some bonus escalators that'll kick in at some point or another in this contract? Sure, there will be. But this is the reason why this deal gets done now. This is the reason why you're coming to a middle ground, even when it would appear on the surface of it here that it's $42 million cost in full, meaning that sort of Seattle had to come into this situation and they didn't get anything for signing Jaxon early, but they did. They got the 2 extra years because the 4 years goes on the 2, which gives you 6 years, as Jaxon Smith-Njigba is just turning 24 right now. When this contract were to fulfill and finish, he will be 30 years old, just barely 30 days into turning 30 years of age. So you're going to get his full prime all the way through. Now he's got to stay healthy. This is the football life. Anything can happen. We see that this stuff goes up and down, though I will point to and say to you that the wide receiver position tends to be one where guys tend to last. And even when we look at the recent really good receivers who've come through over here, Tyler Lockett, Doug Baldwin, DK Metcalf, pretty good about staying healthy. Injuries do come up, but they did a pretty good job about staying on health, and that even when you gave them the contract extensions, that you were able to get the money back on those extensions, and it was well worth it. So while there is a risk there, this is a really young player, still very much almost just getting out of being a pup. And so he's going to be a guy now you're going to get through that full allotment of that prime. You're essentially saying you're not going to come back to have that bite back at the apple again when you're still at your physical best. Maybe you will be at 30. Some receivers can still pull it off and get that done at that age. But you're saying at that point, We're getting all of this timeline of you in club control. And then the last point being is because there's no new bonus money that we're being instructed on the books here, that it's going into more of a guaranteed fashion. Being Jackson, you're not getting the money now, you're getting the money later, but we're guaranteeing you're getting the money. Because it's that, you're keeping the contract down over the next 2 years at 10.3 and 15.6. I looked at even the deal right now, even into year 3, you're still going to keep the contract pretty low. And when you do push it all the way out to a 6-year deal, you're 2 years left, 4 years here. That means what he's being paid really, truly, average per year, because that's the average per year at 42.4 is just the 4 years. The 6 years of the deal with the last 2, when you put that all together, it actually comes out to $32.4 million. Very reasonable. Very reasonable. I'm not going to come up here and stand and start pound the table and say that there's some bargain in this deal, but I am seeing a lot of people, I think, getting lost in the sauce of this deal and the agent numbers in this deal and not understanding that actually this works out really well for Seattle and that this shows you why they're a smart organization in getting ahead of these contracts rather than behind on these contracts. Because when you do what the Cincinnati Bengals did with Ja'Marr Chase, for instance, and you say, all right, we know after 3 years you've earned this contract extension and you want to be paid well, but we're the Bengals and we don't have a lot of money and we don't want to do that. And we still have you under 2 years of club control anyway, so we don't have to do that. What are you going to do about it, Ja'Marr? Ja'Marr looks at them and he's like, man, I helped you take you to a Super Bowl. I've been great from the jump, man. What? Yeah, we hear you, but them's is the rules. And then Ja'Marr goes out there and balls out in that 4th year, comes back around now. There's no discount. There's no club control of extra years. There's no way to now manage the money that much easier. Now it's landing on you with a thud and the full force of it almost from the jump. You got that one final year, but that one final year is that 5th year option, which for Ja'Marr Chase, because he was a top 3 pick, was pretty high. Just again, shows you what a bad organization does. What a smart organization does is get out ahead of it to get the savings. All this is going to be a risk. All of this stuff, every decision in football is a risk. There's no way to mitigate any of that. You always are going to make a little bit of a gamble, but can you make the smart ones? And I would say on a guy like Jackson, who's been good for the jump, a guy like Jackson who hasn't missed a football game in his entire career, it's pretty well money spent that you're going to get 6 years of his club control for what's looking like a Hall of Fame career at not having to pay any point in time to where you're really breaking the bank. There are people out there, you're going to see some people posting out there right now that nobody's won the Super Bowl with the highest paid wide receiver in the sport on average per year. This is why this number is so silly, because the average per year is not factoring in the first 2 years of the deal here. And that's why it's like, well, that's kind of an arbitrary amount. And well, what about the Eagles doing it a couple of years ago when they had paid A.J. Brown a big amount of money, but then they just, buried a bunch of it in the void stuff. And then what about the Chiefs when they had Tyreek Hill, who was certainly a de facto difference-making wide receiver, making top of the market money at that time, partly because you weren't paying Patrick Mahomes. That kind of helped them out a bit, didn't it? So that's a disingenuous argument. It's a silly argument. The better teams playing here as we get into the end of the year, most years on average tend to have those difference makers out there that get it done in the playoffs that can separate. So good money spent, in my opinion. Don't let some of the false narrative on this one that's getting spun out there in certain places. It's really outside the Hawk fan base. This is going on where they're trying to, I think, gaslight us up a bit on this. Like, this is what you want to pay for number one. Or this guy was trying to post out there about this whole Devontae Smith-Jackson comparison. And it's going into this just weird realm on some of the discussion here. And again, disingenuous because it's really not unpacking all the true details of the deal. It's getting caught up on what the agent said, which doesn't take into account the fact that you're going to get Jaxon Smith-Njigba for $10 million next year. And you're going to get him for $15 million the year after that. I don't understand how that's a bad deal from the Seattle Seahawks perspective. They're making him wait. Yeah, they're giving him the extension, but they're making him basically wait for any new money 2 years out. That's not too shabby from the team's perspective of this. Now, the Bobo one is definitely going to be one that's a little bit more, I think, surprising from Seattle's fans' perspective a little bit. They love Bobo, and look, we all want more Bobo, no doubt about that. But you were looking at this and you're saying, okay, you're going to eventually have to pay Jackson, which we now know today for sure they got that done. You know that you just paid Rashid Shaheed $17 million per year. That's costly. Right now we know in our guy Cooper Kupp that he's not coming in cheap this year either. So you're already paying on 3 receivers at a pretty good amount. So on the first surface of this, you go, well, how are you going to pay Bobo now a 2-year contract extension and afford to pay all these guys as you're trying to balance this up? I think some of this comes down to, again, the fact that they've gotten ahead of contracts. So, you got ahead of the Abraham Lucas contract last year, save a little bit of money there. You didn't mess around with the Cross contract moving into this offseason. It was done and done as you got in this offseason. So you could kind of get everything structured just the way you want so John can put this together right. Because as you can see over these for next 2 years, very important fact that you can keep Jaxon Smith's contract numbers and their hits down. Hopefully you can do the same, because if you can get both JSN and Witherspoon with their next 2 years of the rookie deal still locked into the same place or right around there, so because Devin's the only guy that can upset this now, it is locked in for Jackson. You're really having these guys now at real kind of cheap rates over the next 2 years at a time when you're really trying to go forward and push. And when you do look at the Jake Bobo contract, it's not that bad on this. You're going to pay him on the offer sheet, if nobody signed him to an extension, $3.5 million on a 1-year deal. That was going to be the cap hit as it stood by Seattle's determination of this. So you have a 2-year, $5.5 million deal, 4.5 fully guaranteed, $1.75 million signing bonus, a $2 million base for 2027. So you take the signing bonus and the $2 million, half that basically. So you're left with, we got $700,000 about. So it's $2.7 million is going to be basically his cap hit now for 2026. And what was it going to be prior? 3.5. So you almost are just about to maybe potentially, with this contract extension to Jake Bobo, actually save about $1 million off the cap this year for what he was going to cost. And he comes in now, of course, we saw last year as a guy that can do a lot of different things. I'm not going to oversell. We have a lot of fun with the more Bobo, and we all love Bobo, and he's given us some really cool moments, even though he doesn't get a lot of chance to always play. But he is what he is on this, as a 5th wide receiver in this set, as a guy that can come in and fill in and start for you occasionally, a guy that can play all the wide receiver positions. He's big enough to be an X. He's got a good enough lateral agility to be a problem as a slot wide receiver. We saw in the Rams playoff game that he can be a red zone threat, and he's had a couple of opportunities to do that actually here, where a touchdown catch, I think, against the Panthers. And maybe it was the Cardinals or the Panthers as well. I think he had one with 2 catches in it, but he's had a couple of moments down there. And this goes back to his UCLA days where he's really good with that. And then he's a very good special teamer on top of it, and then we add even an extra slice on this, is that he has been a pretty good run blocker overall. But I will say it's been a little bit odd where he came in his first year and he was utterly dominant as a run blocker. And then the last couple of years, it's been a little bit of, he's been okay as a run blocker. It hasn't been quite as, dominant it was out the chute. There's been some good reps in there. There's been some moments that were flashes back to year one, but I can show you some tape of year one where he's absolutely just dusting guys up, like 3 guys up on one play kind of stuff. But he's big. He gives you that receiving kind of component you don't really have through the rest of the roster. And these other guys that are a little bit more of the faster or lateral agility, that kind of thing. He gives you a little bit more of that, I think. Guy that can give you jump ball ability down there in the goal line. Again, I know we haven't seen a lot of this, but I think it does not mean that he doesn't have it existing in his skill set as an ability to call out and bring a pound if we should be required or needed it. So not a super costly deal here. If you break it down to it, he's pretty close to, not the vet minimum, but he's not far away from that either for what you're bringing in for a guy that's doing so many things within this offense, run blocking, special teams, can come in and fill in for you as a starter and give you some snaps in that way. It's valuable to have, and a guy that, again, now keep more of this locker room back in tow and keep the chemistry as locked in as you can, offensively speaking, as well as giving Sam Darnold here a lot of stuff to be able to allow him, I think, even more success in this next season. As you weren't going to lose any of your Jaxon Smith, but you're going to keep Rashid Shaheed back in tow. You're really going to have a lot of targets to throw to. The tight end core, as good as it is, all 5 of your offensive lines set and ready to come back. It's not going to surprise me in the least if we do see this offense even more efficient next year, even more potentially explosive, as you're really going to have a lot of guys that have worked together now for a good amount of time going on the back of what should be a team brimming with confidence on the back of the Super Bowl victory. You'd have to think, wouldn't you? You guys let me know. Did you guys like these signings? Are you a little bit worried about it? Or is this money well spent as I feel like I stand on the deal as it stands? I'd love to hear from you guys. And you let me know down below here in the comment section or in comments if you're watching this in after we have gone live here. Appreciate everybody watching today. If you can hit the like button for me. Sub on up. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about this deal today. Because again, I dropped the video on my reaction to it a couple hours ago and then looking up at some of the reaction here I'm seeing online a little bit from some people, I'm definitely seeing a little bit of some worry in there and some concern. And I don't think there's any reason to have that on this one. Seattle's smart to get this deal done. And once you do know now Jackson's done, and once you do know now that you can keep the first couple years of his deal as low as you're able to keep it, does this now allow John to be more freed up here to get busy with it, to get active, get a little bit of motion, you know? If there's a deal to be had out there on the table where he's like, well, I got to bring this in, I got to think about this cost, but first this has got to come down. I've been thinking they've wanted to get this extension done down the line a little bit. And this is another reason why I think that you should look at this as a good signing, because I think the reason the deal gets done now as opposed to in June or July has a lot to do with Jackson and his people being willing to step up to the table and not push the issue too hard, not come at it saying, you know, this, we need all this bonus money and we need to be the highest paid receiver, which they could have done, which other receivers have done in the past. And instead coming up, as you can see on this deal, and saying, no, just put it on the end of the deal. Yes, you're going to make us this highest paid, but when we factor it together with the first 2 years, the last 2 years of my rookie deal, it all makes a lot of sense for both player and team. It's the best kind of deals, because those are the kind of deals that the player doesn't get bitter about and pissy about when you're 3 years into it, where they're like, man, they really put me over on this one. Versus, hey, I got paid at fair market value, but I didn't get overpaid from the team's perspective now, where they're looking at the first opportunity they can to find the exit door on the deal. And this is one of the nice parts about when you're not just trying to win every negotiation to the maximum in that way, but at the same point, player also has to be smart. And I think that's where you got to give kudos to Jackson in this for being willing to step up to this and say, all right, yeah, I'm going to wait a little bit down the line because I can preserve a little bit of this championship window by doing so. I'm going to still get paid. I'm going to still get my money. The guarantees are there. My limbs fall off tomorrow. The guarantees are there. They're still going to click in. So that's always been my point too with the players sometimes on the bonus money, especially as it can inhibit you so much on the cap, is like, just go to the guarantees. You're going to get that anyway. I know you want money in hand right now, but it's not like the NFL is going to go insolvent and bankrupt. You know, you'll get your money. You will get paid. You guys let me know though. I thank you guys for watching today. Appreciate everybody for tuning on in today as well. Let's check in with a couple of donations we got off the rip here. Megan Gok Roger, my lady from down under. Thank you for 49 months. 49 months as a Hawks Nest member. Appreciate you for that long time support. 9 years on Thursday since I lost my dad. Was not concerned about JSN or Bobo. Makes a crappy week better. Let's effing go, Hawks. Hey, let's effing go. Sorry about that loss. It's a long time, but it still feels fresh. I know with that type of stuff. And yeah, I wasn't anticipating Bobo was going to come back after that offer sheet. In fact, once you signed Cody White, it was kind of like, from my perspective, is that Bobo kind of going, all right, I got to go to where I'm going to get some opportunities here, because on this depth chart, I'm not getting nothing. But instead, team said, no, we'll bring you back for that price. We'll jump for that. And the contract structure in this one, the way that the Jaguars did set it up was pretty realistic, I think, from their standpoint of things. There are, of course, a couple of, as you could see on this overlay that I'm posting right now, there is some bumps in this that could push the contract up, where he gets $150,000 for 25 catches, $100,000 for 35 catches, $150,000 for 250 yards, $100,000 for 350 yards. But I think the likelihood of him hitting this, absent us having a complete and an utter collapse of the wide receiver position, is probably pretty small. I think we're probably pretty good on that money not being allocated into that direction of things. So we should be good there. But thank you, Megan. Appreciate that long time support on the channel. Very kind as ever. And let's have him go Hawks. Got another one of the band coming back home. Got another guy coming back in. Industry Word, thank you for 4 months as a Hawks Nest member. Says, let's have it go Seahawks. Never, ever forget. Don't you do it. Don't you dare. Go Hawks. R. DeLevy, thank you for the $5 donation, Mr. DeLevy. We got to keep Bobo. I am locked in for 2026. You're bringing just another guy back into the fold. You've got so many starters on this team that are being brought back. Another point that's just been pushed as a point of emphasis by the national media and pundits. And again, this is something to me that's outside the Hawk fan base, because I think people have been pretty smart about their understanding about what's going on. I don't think anybody's jumping off the roofs or anything. I think a Super Bowl victory should definitely give fans that kind of confidence. But You are hearing this national thing of, well, they're losing this and they're losing that and decimating losses. And how are they going to overcome? And what are they going to do now? They don't have enough draft picks to get all these. But at the same time, you're returning so many different starters across the board. What you are losing, you've got the replacements in-house and the depth. One of those big points and pieces of why we got to where we got last year was depth. That you had guys go out starter-wise, and that whole coach speak about there will be no fall off, next man up. It proved to be true. The next guy going in there was able to steady the ship right along like the starter was, even outperform the starter in some cases, which I think in Nakata, you could make that argument when he came in there. I love Mies and Bryant. Guy's got a nose for the ball. Took the safety position really well. But there's an argument to be made that Okada outplayed him last year. So that's really a thing the coaches speak about, but that's rarely, comes into play. Bobo comes in last year. We're in the biggest game of the year. We're trying to go and get ourselves up in this game. We're trying to go get this win. Conference championship, are you kidding me? Then he comes out there and wins one-on-one. Sam's looking his direction. Why Sam's looking his direction? Because he's practiced with him and he knows he's going to create the separation. And he knows that kind of route. He's going to kill that cornerback at the stem of the route. He's going to give him a little shake and bake. And he's going to bust inside. He's going to be open. But we're definitely locked in for 2026. This is a team that's returning so many guys now. So few losses. Okay, Walker's gone. Okay, Brian. Okay, Woolen. Okay, Mafe. You got 3 other edges. You got 3 other cornerbacks. You got your safety replacement. Okay. we're fine. We're 5 deep at the tight end position. We got our fullback. Got 6 wide receivers. I got our whole offensive line. Plus, if I'm not mistaken now, all 5 of our offensive linemen and Jones coming back. Kite's going to come back. Cable Dew's going to come back. Haynes is going to come back. And Oluwatimi's going to come back. So you're 5-5. You got your 5 offensive line starters, and then you've got your 5 backups, unless you feel like buffing it up even more in the draft. I mean, your backups, that is. Or maybe even find a starter, God forbid. So they have put this thing up, ready to get back to it next year. It's not going to be there from the hype machine, from the national perspective of here, but who gives a damn? It is as Mike says.
We did not care.
We did not care. Didn't care last year. Didn't matter. All the hype in the world, and I tried to push this to people last year about hype, or even as we were winning, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if people look at us and say that we're this or that. We know. Ball knowers know. People who watch this sport understand how good this team, how good they're going to continue to be. And we've not been decimated by losses. And now they continue to reinforce the ranks with guys that have been here, known quantities and what we're getting to various levels. And we're going to take off again next year. Just my opinion. Industry Worth. Thank you for the $5 donation, Industry Worth. I can't tell what those emojis are. Is that honey? Looks like honey. Pancakes. Oh, making me hungry, Industry Worth. You're making me hungry. I found this new breakfast place that's got these German pancakes that are they're really too good. It's almost like eating cake for breakfast, but I can't help myself. Come on, this swabs of butter and, it's too good. Koken, thank you for 5 months as a Hawks Nest member. How does impending extensions of Murphy and Darnold next offseason affect other free agents like Big Cat, Love, EJ, interior O-line? What sacrifices will be made? Well, I'm not as convinced at this point that there's a necessity for making sacrifices at this point. I think part of this you can say is a bit informed by why you're as careful as you've been here when it comes to your approach here in free agency. So that's a little bit of it, is that you're thinking a couple years ahead on some of the stuff that's going to come in that you're going to have to deal with and pay attention to. When it comes to 2027 right now, the Seattle Seahawks are sitting lower and lower as far as their cap space goes as we currently stand. And, lower as far as comparatively speaking to other teams out there. Like you're looking at right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 8 teams have right now less cap space than us in 2027. We have a lot of cap space in 2028. And I think that there is a couple of things that are worth mentioning in where you're sitting in the space. Of course, as I always talk about Koken, it's about flexibility. So it's not just how much cap space I have, but how much cap space can I create? Base to bonus, base to void. In all of the next 3 seasons, the Seattle Seahawks have little to almost no money, and quite literally no money as far as dead money in 2027 as it currently does stand. They've got Sato Lamé at $100,000 and Damian Martinez at $100,000. So very low amount of money there. And meanwhile, they've got a lot of guys under contract as well. When you go down to next year, you have 34 guys already under contract. So that's a little bit of a part of that. I think that when you look at making the extensions next year, you have Leonard Williams going into the final year of his deal. And when he goes into the final year of his deal, he's going to be carrying a $16 million base. So can you, on the extension you give to Leonard Williams, can you lower down that base while still giving him an extension, especially if you're putting void years down the line? You better believe you can. With Sam Darnold at his $12.3 million base salary, can you do the same thing as you're going to now put him on a contract extension? Because I think after this season, you'll put those guys on extensions. You won't make them play through. Or sorry, I was relating that wrong. Reverse this. So Leonard Williams is just a free agent there by 2027. I think you'll have a contract extension done with him at some point or another, even this year, if his intentions to play into the future. I think one of the reasons that we might not hear or see that happen, though, might come down to Leonard wanting to retire at that point, Koken. We don't know about his intentions here, but does he want to continue to go for another 3 or 4 years here? Or just a 1 year at a time thing? Well, maybe he wants to wait until that time to see where that stands. That one's a little bit harder to predict on because you just don't know if you can do it a couple of years on it, if it's a year-to-year thing. There's not extra years to kind of base to bonus it. With Sam Darnold, he's got a $35 million, $0.5 million base next year. So let's just say you go into that next year's contract and you say, okay, we're ripping up the last year of that deal. There's still going to be the prorated bonus on this deal. But now we're going to put you under a new contract. We're going to take your base salary down to a base minimum. We're going to put all of this other money in other places. Now you've structured up and created like $30 million of cap space off the Darnold deal alone. And that's feasible. That's what a lot of teams do with their quarterback situation. And so once you do that, you not only get him on a contract extension, you actually lower down significantly his contract hit into 2027. Likewise, Cooper Kupp comes in on an $18 million cap hit on the final year of his deal. You have a $12.5 million base salary of that can be moved around. Julian Love's on a $10.3 million, I think, I want to say that's his last year of his deal as well. So, you can get these guys all essentially signed on an extension because you can just take down that first year down to a base minimum and then spread all this money down the line. And it doesn't even need to be necessarily buried with a bunch of void years. But I will say that John's showing a willingness to use void years. So that's not out of pocket to predict that you will be willing to go back that direction once again, especially if you're talking about a team that's winning Super Bowl championships. It becomes a lot easier sell to the ownership to say, look, we're going to put these void years down the line so we can continue to try to keep the dynasty afloat. Is that okay? Yeah, you can go. Yeah, go ahead and do that. I get that. So I don't know that we necessarily are going to have to make those kind of decisions. I think Koken, those kind of decisions come up in the form of we're not even coming close to anything near where Boye Mafi's at with the $20 million for a fourth rusher like that. That's where his production's at. We're not going to come in at the contract that Kobe Bryant got in for where he really is as a safety overall. We're not overpaying for guys just for the sake of that. We're not going to overpay guys on positions that are devalued. If we're paying Ernest Jones, then the other linebacker position, being the Will and Drake Thomas, is going to maybe get a little bit of money, but it's not going to be paid on an equivalency to where we're at with the Mike. No. And if we're going to be paying Devin Witherspoon this, and we got Emanwari that, I would probably reckon to guess that by that time period, a Josh Jobe contract comes off the books. And that now you're paying Emanwari and you're paying Witherspoon, and now the third corner is going to be a little bit cheaper. So it all comes back around again to that load balance game and how you structure these contracts, and that you don't have to make the hard decisions on guys you want to keep. You just have to make sure that you're always making sure you're remembering those positions that are a little bit devalued, that are devalued for a reason, that you can afford to go a little cheaper on. You continue to stay in that mode of, so you can make sure to pay these more premium positions, especially in premium positions with players that you really like and have a lot of faith in. But, there's DeMarcus Lawrence coming up next year in 2027. He's got a $9.6 million cap. What if he retires? If he retires instantly, now you've got $10 million of space, completely freed up, approximately. Yeah, $10.7 million of cap space. Now, bang, right back in your pocket. And so it looks a little bit weird when you look at the just cap space per se, but you have so much flexibility in there. So much flexibility. They're in a very sound place as far as their cap situation, Seattle is. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Warhammer guy, thank you for the $5 donation, Warhammer. Love that we're getting the Rams over the barrel with Puka. As long as they address running back, I'm fine with anything. What's your favorite running back plan at this point? Ooh, great question. There's a part of me that wants to go comic book villain when it comes to the running back plan. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second. But first, the Puka thing. It did make me laugh a little bit when I heard the numbers announced on this deal, because the Rams are in a different position with Puka. They're in a Puka pickle. And the Puka pickle is that, and no, I'm not referencing a TMZ video. You might have seen that, by the way, coming up on your feed. That's not what the Puka pickle's in reference to. That's something else. A little bit to drink, but the pickle is that he is a day 3 guy, and that's a grapevine by the Rams. And you would love it if the NFL would reward teams for this, but there's a little bit of almost a punishment that you feel for this. And that punishment is that if you now go through that third year of that player and he's balling out of control and he's coming off his best year and he's right neck and neck there with Jaxon Smith as far as the performance goes, so every bit deserving of that contract. And then you only now have him on the one more year of club control. So Seattle, with making this contract a little bit more able to be digested, is that you stack the 4 years on the 2, which spreads all the money out. But with Puka's deal, you got the 1 year left. So you could throw the 4 on the edge, but you only got the 1 year left. And so can you talk Puka, number one, can you talk Puka into the same deal that you just kind of talked Jackson in? And you can only do it partially, even if you do, being that you say, okay, like we're going to play, we're just going to pay on the final year of this rookie deal, and you haven't been paid yet, unlike Jackson, who got a little bit of money. You haven't been paid yet. And now we're going to just kind of, we're going to base salary you this year bit, bro, like you get $5 million, huh? And then, but you have you'll get your money down the line. Then maybe that doesn't flow with a guy like Puka. And then how much does Puka push to make sure he's maximizing out what he gets paid? Because he's a guy that has said that I don't plan to play beyond 30 years old. That's as far as I'd like to go. They're in a little bit of a tougher spot as far as that contract goes. And this does mean that Puka's got every right to come back and say potentially even more, hey, I'm a better blocker. Hey, you can use me like a running back. Hey, that means you need to pay me more. And I hope they do it. I literally do hope they do it, because that's going to put them in a bind on theirs a little bit, again, more. They don't have the ability to do what we can kind of do on it. But as far as my favorite running back plan at this point, I mean, I don't mind the running backs that play, and I think people got a little bit annoyed with me for not. I think Jadarian Price is definitely a guy in the Hawk fan base that's just loved a lot, and I probably don't give him as much love as others like him, and I don't not like him. He's fine, and Mike Washington's a lot of fun. Jonah Coleman's fun, but are they my favorite? You asked the question, are they my favorite? And there's almost a bit of a diabolical sense that I have to this where I'm almost kind of like, well, F it, throw the Dolphins the second round pick you don't want to give them for Achane, but then you just don't sign Achane. And you say to Achane, like, we're going to bring you here. You'll get to be the part feature guy like we did with Charbonnet last year. We have a blueprint in place for exactly how you're going to be paid. We will not, we're not going to franchise you. We'll agree not to franchise you because we don't care. We'll get the compensatory pick on the reverse side of this. And then you just get filthy with it, right? Like you don't pay the backs, but you're just you're willing to throw draft capital a little bit at it, but you don't pay them. To me, that's a bit of the market opportunity in this situation with running backs because they don't go in the first round. So the market opportunity does become, I can get a really good player typically into the sort of that second round area of things. That player's not quite as good as this year as it's been, I think, in the past with a Walker or a Charbonnet there. I think if you're talking about picking in the second round what we're selecting, or I guess let's talk about the end of the first round. If you were talking about, from my perspective on having a choice between a Jadarian Price, a Mike Washington Jr., a Zach Charbonnet, and a Walker, I'm going to take the two latter over the two former if I'm picking there at 32 and I've got all four and I've got to pick two of the four. And I think there's something telling in that. So there's a part of me goes, well, without good options, maybe I would just toss HN. I'm going, okay, next year I'm souped up. I get the compensatory pick on the other side of it. He can go get paid from that angle of it if it goes that way. And I don't have to miss a beat at the running back position. I don't have to worry about this draft of finding the guy that's going to, give me a little bit of that difference making quotient that Kenneth Walker provided. I'm not finalized on this one, Hammer Guy, but I'm definitely leaning a little bit on this one, or just free balling it to the trade deadline and then just hoping that you can pry away Breece Hall from the Jets at that point. That we might have to go commando to the trade deadline. That's the other possibility I'm willing to embrace here. I like the backs in this draft. They're fine. They're fine, They get it done. Yeah. I can't get over the side of it with them in this draft. I should, because it's probably going to happen, but I have a hard time on it. Banker Elbreeze, thank you for the $2 donation. Says Brando, defend the Kelsey extension. No, they didn't. I saw some reference to this. I've been kind of working today on 3-year, $54.7 million deal. Dude, $19 million per year. Ooh. Travis Kelce on a $19 million per year contract at that age. That's making him the highest paid. Woo. I'm kind of trying to unpack this one. I didn't know it went this hard. I figured Banker it was going to be some Danielle Hunter 1 year dumb deal. Okay, well, first off, why they're doing this is because it's not that he runs great routes. It's of course because him and Mahomes have a chemistry that allows for them to find production off script on plays that are even now still very beneficial to Mahomes. He can come out of stepping up out of the pocket, rounding out of pressure, turn his back to the wide receivers and tight ends and flip his head back around and know that Kelsey's going to be in this spot. And Kelsey then to that point, will be in the right position in space. So it's kind of like, they could almost like sleepwalk their way for him to finding 500 yards of of pass catching. Doesn't make it worth the contract. Doesn't mean that I think that they should have done it. Part of me thinks that they're doing this because of the fact that, he's like turning over retirement. He's got like an $11 million contract on a 1-year deal next year. That's what he's looking down. So does he come to the Kansas City Chiefs and he's like, well, I want to retire. And the Chiefs, by the Walker signing, you can tell this, are kind of like, no, but we still want to go for it. And that if you retire, now we've got to go find the answer at tight end next year. And we're going to be having a guy probably learning the ropes with Mahomes there where we're trying to go through it. We don't want to do that. Okay, well, you're going to have to pay me. So I would estimate that this comes down to them lowering down the first year contract of this extension tremendously banker to then facilitate bringing him back. So they probably lowered down the $11 million cap hit because Kansas City was in real bad cap space. This is the other part that shouldn't factor in here as much, banker, but remember KC was in not the best of cap space coming into this offseason. So you're also kind of driven from a small, not momentum. I'm trying to think of just by what's driving you to make the decision in this. It's not like a main driving force, but there's also something kind of scratching the back of you saying, well, if we could get Travis here also for next year on the lowered hit at like $5, $6, $7 million less than where his cap's currently hitting at, that'd be kind of nice too. That'd be a good thing as well. So I think that they throw all that together, and I know you say justify it or defend it, but I'm not going to defend it, but I will say that that's the justification for it from their standpoint. I think that there's something to be said for the off-script stuff that nobody's going to be talking about with him that he does bring, that you could even see last year in the Chiefs offense that still existed between him and Mahomes, and that's something that you can't, you're not going to be able to bring in just a talented tight end and be able to duplicate that. That comes from years of those guys playing together. But he is very old. He's one bad injury, a lower leg injury away on a bad tackle for a kind of a taller bodied tight end to get knocked out. I come back and wonder with the Chiefs as well, as if they're not heading into a direction that feels a little bit of that potential purgatory spot of things. Now, I know that they just went and didn't get to the playoffs for like the first time in any season that Patrick Mahomes hasn't been there. So it's a little bit of an outlier, and it occurs, of course, in a year where Mahomes gets injured, though they were out of the playoff hunt really before Mahomes got injured. But I would say that I was also the guy that predicted that the Chiefs were going to miss the playoffs this last year. I said that was one of my bold predictions because you could kind of feel them starting to get to this stage. The milk's starting to go bad. Oh, it's a little, it's a 36. It's a little old. No. And that's a little bit what's going on here. Offensive lines bled out once. You're able to repair it, fill it in, kind of get some guys that you had filling in a little bit older. Now they've got to move on. Now you got to try to replace that again. That's hard to do. You've kind of spun through wide receivers that haven't really worked. A lot of first-round picks, second-round picks. This guy flames out. This guy doesn't work. That guy doesn't work. Okay. Well, now you defensively, they start to kind of carry the load, but Chris Jones is getting older. You're not really getting the development from some of the youngsters that you've drafted in recent years, especially some of those edges. You're going to lose a couple of secondary players this offseason that you don't have ready-made replacements in-house to just go here. What are you doing there? And yeah, you're going to be in full contending mode with some of these contracts. And they feel like a team that's pushing themselves, Panker, into that place that I say is purgatory that teams get stuck in, and you get stuck in it because you're making moves thinking you're elite. And look, Tyreek Hill signs back with them next year, and he can go to Switzerland and get some Regenikine shot into his knees. Maybe he can come back to somewhat of what he was before. Maybe they can find a little bit of that last dance magic to him. Maybe it's a little late, a little old, hard to come back off those injuries as an older player. And they're pushing that Mahomes is going to be ready to go here like game one. I'll see that when I believe it. Maybe. So it's a bad extension. But it's more of a pulse of maybe bad decision making inherently laden within this situation, being that maybe the Chiefs would be smart here in trying to, okay, let's get to the second life of Mahomes. Like the Patriots did. The first life of Brady was, okay, we're going to be run-centric, defensive-driven. We're going to have him as a game manager. And he started to get more and more out of that. Then you reach that transition where you said, okay, now we're going to spread concepts. and we're going to allow for Brady to really be the pass happy guy that he kind of became to the back half of his career. But you also kind of re-engineered the parts and pieces around him to then make that work. And you could say maybe that's something you need to do with Mahomes now at this point. And instead it feels like more, especially if they're to bring back Tyreek Hill there, which seems to be the likelihood. It seems like more of that thing that bad organizations do, like the Niners, where you just keep trying to squeeze toothpaste out the tube that no longer exists within the tube. You know, you're to the stage of like putting water in the tube and swizzling it around and then trying to push it out on your toothpaste. Like, dude, just go buy a new tube. Let it go. Right. Thank you, though, Banker. Appreciate you, man. Sloby1, thank you for the $2 donation. Do you think we pay Devin Witherspoon? I do think the contract with Devin Witherspoon does get done before the end of the year, before the start of the season happens. I had been predicting on this one that this was going to be a little bit of a tougher one to get done. And the reason being comes down to bonus money and kind of cost, because with Jaxon Smith's last contract, a lot of the bonus money basically had come out of this deal. There wasn't much, there's a little bit left there, and that's taking up a big part of, let's say, the fourth year here of what he's got going on. But, you know, Devin had a little bit kind of more put together on his deal, structurally wise, though they have the same cap cost. So maybe I'm a little bit off on this one, but I thought a little bit of what was going to make it a little sticky was that Devin had insisted on a lot of kind of guarantees, bonuses through his initial rookie contract that might make it take a little bit more time, but it still gets done before the start of training camp, in my opinion. It does. And you activated the 5th-year option on Witherspoon, and so I would estimate that you're going to try to do the same thing you did here with Jackson, tack on 4 years onto the 2. Now, are Witherspoon's people willing to play ball like Jaxon Smith's people in this respect? Or do they say, no, you're going to put 2 years on the remaining 2 years of this deal, and you're going to give us this in bonus money? You make things maybe a little harder on John to pull off at that point. Again, considering that first negotiation with Witherspoon on the first contract there was a little hairy. Remember, there's a little bit of a mini holdout. So that's where that could get a little bit, quite just a tiny bit tougher to pull off, but it still gets done. And you probably get somewhere in the vicinity of getting done what you were able to do here with Jackson, being pushing most of this on into the future, getting him locked up for a multitude of years, especially through his prime. And it'll be just maybe one that we got to wait a little bit on that one, maybe. Who knows? Maybe we get news of this tomorrow, Sloby. You know, they let Jackson get his spotlight today, and then bam, hit us with Devin tomorrow. That'd be a hell of a back-to-back, wouldn't it? A Banker, thank you for the $2 donation, Banker. For fun, how does a what the F pull out my hair draft look? Ooh. Well, I can give you an answer on that on two perspectives. I would say from a drafting perspective on this one, just NFL generalized, I think if you saw 4 quarterbacks or something taken the first round, that definitely make me go, what the hell? Trying to think if you mean that by pull my hair out by how we draft. I tend to just get frustrated when we're drafting guys whose grades are just far beyond where you're taking them. So it's, you go out and you take a guy, 49ers last year took a linebacker, Eric Martin, in the 3rd round. I had like a late 5th round, 6th round grade on that guy. And you kind of look at that pick and you're like, yikes, you guys, that's an awful pick, Niners. And then if you notice now, the Niners have had Dre Greenlaw brought back. It doesn't exactly speak to a lot of confidence in that 3rd round pick you made the prior year when you're bringing Greenlaw back in there to be the starter at the same position. But I would say that it would be really like going that route of it where you see the team making a pick that's just like, and they've done this before, by the way. I thought Jordan Brooks was not a 1st round pick, and not because he couldn't defend the run or couldn't tackle, because the guy can't cover for his life. And it's kind of important in the modern NFL that you got to cover as a linebacker. So them drafting in the 1st round was kind of ridiculous to me. And LJ Collier, same thing. There's very little production. Guy was not a good pass rusher at TCU. Had a good Senior Bowl. Made the team fall in love with him. Bad draft. Horrible pick. That type of stuff just drives me crazy. And I think so, as I talk this through, Banker, probably it's really down to early on in the draft, especially, is the ones that'll frustrate me and get me annoyed. It's not the later picks. It's that you can do whatever you want in the later portions of the draft, but especially this draft where we only have the first, second, third round pick, and then we've got to wait a long period of time until the sixth. You've got to get these ones right. And the thing that drives me most crazy is just extending outside of value and reaching for need. And it's something that the team did for many years. And they took that left turn 3 years ago. And John's been living this life. He's been living that value life early in the draft over and over again. And I come back to again and again that it's hard to see a position where I'm going to be pulling my hair out in this draft because he's learned his ways, number one. And number two, in him learning his ways, it's brought in him the greatest of success. Why change from that if that's been the reality? I can't see him doing it. So I don't really have a way where I see them doing some pick here that just completely blows my top off. I think that the team can go to any position, and if they feel the value is right, I think they're going to be going and getting a hell of a player there. It may be a guy where you're grabbing like Anthony Hill, an inside linebacker with the first round pick, and everybody's like, what the hell? But I'll be sitting there going, makes sense. They're going for upside. That's how value is. Value is upside. It's not about where's the depth chart. It's not about who's my starter. It's about, you might put a little bit of the starter point to it, but it's also about upside. And I got this guy's got more upside than anything on the team on this position. I got star upside on this guy. I'm jumping for that. We'll find a way to make it work. He'll find his way on the football field. Yeah. So I'm an exact, they do this, they do that. I would say like quarterback if that was a thing, but you got 3 quarterbacks. There's no chance of it happening. So it's really like they've removed any possibility of there being a pull your hair out moment for me in this draft with our Hawks, especially picking 32 in this draft, because it's just like, I already know, Banker, they're picking a second round rated guy at 32, point blank. There's no first round value guy that's going to land in our lap. Like whoever we select at 32, 31 other general managers will be looking at whoever we have to pick in the player there in that spot, no matter who we pick, just the possible players there to be picked. And they will be saying, yeah, they only got second round graded guys available to them here. That is the reality of this one. Thrill House, thank you for the $2 donation, Thrill House. Sonic's back. Kraken brought majority of Key Arena. Well, maybe they build new somewhere. Maybe it's not back in Key Arena, but they just do something else. Maybe they put another one right next to. It'd be kind of cool to just build another one right next to Lumen and the baseball field out there. That'd be pretty cool. But good news, yeah. Sonic's coming back on in. That'll be good to see. Long overdue. Long overdue, Thrill House, and definitely looking forward to it though. Sonic basketball back. That'd be very cool. Very, very cool. Might have to start watching basketball again if they bring our basketball team back. You know what I mean? Might just have to. All right, let's get to you guys over here in the chat. Thank you for the donos. And guys, if you can, for me, please do hit that like button. It's much, 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 much appreciated. And sub it up if you get a chance. Doesn't cost you anything. It is free, and it helps me out tremendously. If you guys want me to respond to something, got a question for me, comment you want me to read, just put Brando, B, Hawks Nest, whichever you may say in there. I will be on the lookout for it, and I will try to respond if I happen to notice. Does Climate Pledge have enough parking for NBA? I don't know if you would be able to do it down there anymore. I mean, some of those, I was driving down that road for the parade, staying at a hotel down in that area, and all of those hospitals and stuff they have down there, or not hospitals, but the medical stuff that they got, the buildings down there, it creates such a log jam of traffic down there now. Might be kind of tough to pull it off. Dick, this is JSN. We'll find a way to have more picks. 32, 64, 92, and 188 now. Yeah, he'll trade back, I'm sure, too. I can see it. Catalyst is feeling it as well. I think trading down makes a lot of sense. Some guy lands in your lap at 32 that, yes, has second round value, but some team behind you really covets. You drop back the 10 to 15 picks. Boom, bingo, bango, boom. You at least get at least a 3, 4th rounder, early 4th rounder, and maybe even a 3rd rounder in doing it. And Bomber says only OGs remember when the Seahawks couldn't draft a good player to save their lives. It's true. It is very true. And yeah, those were brutal, folks. First couple drafts, live streaming the drafts as they're picking Jordan Brooks, LJ Collier, and D. Eskridge all back to back. And boy, my chat was so mad at me for not loving those picks. They were very angry at me back in those days. Like, give them the benefit of the doubt. These guys will be fine. I'm like, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Kieran, I definitely expected this contract. Saw it coming, particularly after the Super Bowl win, and I'm not shocked. I was scared all last year of the money JSN would command. I don't love the numbers, but you had to do it. You did have to do it. If there's any point in time you're going to give a wide receiver the biggest contract in NFL history, especially a contract that allows you to massage the numbers out, guy coming off of an offensive player of the year, a guy that was on a record-setting pace. I spoke to this earlier, but this is kind of like the greatest receiving season for a wide receiver that nobody's really talking about, because it's the efficiency by which he did it as much as anything else. If I go line item by those wide receivers that are up there at the top as far as the highest receiving seasons for a wide receiver in NFL history, I'm going to show you one of two things. Either the Stat Padford-led Lions with Calvin Johnson, who are behind in every single freaking football game, who's got to throw constantly because they're behind in every single football game, who've got the high volume attempts. Thus, Calvin's getting a lot of opportunities to add those yards up, isn't he? And then you got the other side of it, which is the high volume passing approaches. Those teams that just don't run the ball very often anyway, and they want to throw it, and that those receivers are able to go off in those offenses. So you have one of those two styles that are those wide receivers at the top of that list. And then you got Jackson. Because the Seattle Seahawks were not 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. They were 29th in the NFL in passing attempts. 29th. I'm not middle of the road. Back end. Some of the least amount in the NFL. Games where you're ahead in the fourth quarter. You are decimating. You have lapped teams multiple times. Hey, Jackson, have a seat on the beach. Hey, Jackson, we're going to just run through the whole fourth quarter. And yet he was on the pace to put up that record-breaking season. Yeah, he's earned the money. And it's always going to make anybody a little bit tough when you talk about adding out record-breaking contracts, But I think when you do have a guy this young, who's been this good, who's been this healthy, who even if he loses some effectiveness on the outside becomes just an amazing slot receiver as a fallback, which I don't think is going to occur because last year kind of proved he could play to the outside, that he had enough juice out there to get it done, especially for the condensed splits. So it definitely gives you a little bit of pause, but I think we'll see that this is a good one. Addicted Brandon agreed JSN's going BPA, but was Zabel really BPA, or was that JSN finally drafting a guard? I tend to believe that it's more of a BPA situation from Seattle's perspective, but I couldn't say that with as much confidence as I think I normally could say stuff that's a bit of a guess. Because what I think did happen in that first round, Addicted, is I think there was guys in that first round that they would have been interested in who got plucked up that they didn't necessarily anticipate were going to get plucked up. A Tataroa McMillan, a Michael Williams. I think that there was a couple of guys up there that they were sort of like thinking were going to land in their lap. And when they didn't, I could have seen where now they're arriving as Zabel being their highest rated guy or damn near, close to it. But again, I can't guarantee that with certainty. Double check that. I can't guarantee it with certainty, but it does just feel a little bit like in the moment as it was going down, it did feel a little bit like that was kind of the case. Like Colston Loveland, if he had dipped, or Tyler Warren, would one of those two guys have been an interesting guy as far as Seattle's concerned? Maybe so. Jalen Walker, I don't think he would have been a guy, but might have been somebody that would have been on their interest there. And you look at the guys that went behind: Emeka Ibuka, Jada Barron, Derek Harmon, Marion Hampton, Matthew Golden, Donovan Jackson, Jackson Dart, James Pierce. I don't think any of these guys were really high. I can't see any of them having a higher rating on their board than what they had was Abel. Maybe Golden. Maybe. I kind of wonder if even there, though, that John would have said, well, look, we can come back around to wide receiver later on in a trade, and I can go get a Golden type that's more advanced along in their career for next year. Or I don't know if they got there on Golden. Well, I think there'd be some variance out in the league on that. But who else? Who else is the guy that they would have, had higher up on there? Maybe Jihad Campbell. So I think it was, I think they did. Can't guarantee it, but I think so. Kieran, you can survive one market-setting contract, but I'm worried if there's a second, somehow dodge the canine one, but I can't help but think someone else is going to Super Bowl tax us. Well, Devin Witherspoon's going to set a market rate on this one with what he's going to do. You're not getting out of that one. So the Devin Witherspoon's one's coming down the mark. That one's going to hit strong. We don't know where the Darnold's contract's going to be at next year. But I think that those are really the ones that would stand out to me. There's going to be some more other deals here that we've got to talk about. That there's a lot of deals coming down. There is. But I don't think all of them. I think there's going to be few that are true market setting kind of deals absent, those. And Darnold's not going to be market setting. It's, of course, just going to be costly because he's probably going to be up more around probably about 45-ish per year by that point. Yeah, that's Jermaine Ifedi, Malik McDowell, Rashad Penny, LJ Collier. That was a brutal run. Brutal run. And Jermaine Ifedi, need right tackle, pick for need. Malik McDowell, you loved his upside. That one's a little bit more of an unusual one where you loved his upside. You were also chasing the replacement in there for what you were going to have for Bennett, Michael Bennett in there. And so you overlook things that you wouldn't have normally overlooked because of that desperation for that replacement. Rashad Penny, you need the insurance there for the Chris Carson situation because you knew his health might be dodgy moving forward. LJ Collier, you were absolutely desperate for edge help because you'd done nothing throughout the offseason to add anything as far as edge help. All you'd done is sign Ziggy Ansah, who was obviously done by the prior year's tape and beat to hell. Hard to put your risk on that guy. It's where you can really see it's weird to say a bit, but you can see, and as you break down the details of these picks from years prior to the picks recently, to where you can find and truly make the argument for value, not just because the picks have worked out. It's the picks have worked out because you operated by the value model system. It's so stark here as far as this rule of thumb goes. And it's one where it's really kind of hard lined. It really is kind of very few exceptions between the two of these things, is that these teams that operate this way tend to fail. These teams that operate this way tend to find really good success. Megan says, the Hawks says, I'll never watch NBA after the Sonics were taken. Yeah, I get it. I haven't watched since they've left. Might be hard to bring me back in the flow on this one too. Mr. Grubb, there were cities relying on people using light rail and the monorail to get to the games. The monorail is free if you have tickets to the games. Ooh, nice. Okay. I'm a little behind the ball on that one, Mr. Grubb. That makes sense. Good on the city to set that up. Baker says, after watching Bam get 83 points with 40 field goal attempts, free throw attempts, the NBA's cooked. Yeah, that was hard to watch. I was expecting to turn on and get wowed, and instead I was like by the end, covering my face and looking down at the floor, going, what is this? What am I watching? What is this crap? I didn't sign up for this. Randall McDaniel in the house. What's up, Randall? Fantastic to extend draft picks. First Cross and Abe. Now JSN and Spoon. Next, Murph and Barner. We went a decade without extending first-round picks. Build it. If you build it, championships will come. And indeed, you got some extensions here as we speak about coming down that we've got to be aware of and that are going to come down sooner than later. Byron Murphy's going to come in here probably at about 25 to 27 million per year. Barner will be like a 4-year, $13 million deal next year. Partly these are a little bit higher because of the fact that they're going to take place moving down to next year. Derek Hall comes up next year. You got to make a bit of a decision on him. Ernest Jones, Jason Myers. All these contracts are coming up next year. So it just keeps stacking up here as the years go along on this one. And all the more reason you want to get as many done up ahead of time as you can. All the more reason to get them up ahead of time, Randall, and be able to put those numbers in a nice way where you can really structure it down the line. So you can accommodate everyone at that point. When you start having to stack up all of those sort of 3-year deals on top of each other, then you're paying your quarterback an incredible amount of money. Well, now it starts to get tough. And that's where maybe we can avoid a little bit of this on this one with how we can extend, especially guys like Spoon and JSN, but then also with that Murphy, because Murphy will be another first round guy that you can theoretically stack the contract on top of the 2 years. And so it gives you another chance even at that point where even if he's at that 4-year, $27 million per year deal, I'm putting it on the last 2 years of his contract, I can move those numbers around a little bit now there to make that happen. Build it, Randall. Build it, buddy. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. Arkansas running back gives Christian Michael vibes. Am I off? Yeah, I mean, they're a little different to me because Michael was a more low to the ground kind of runner. You know, he was a 5'9" kind of cat. They're both super explosive and super fast. So I think from that perspective, Randall, there's some carryover between the two on that. I think with this guy, his testing scores would make you think he's twitch. And there's some twitch there. I think Christian Michael was a little more of he was a bundle of twitch, you know, spin moves and quick cuts. And part of that was because he had more of the high, he was more of a low cut guy, and that he could get those legs moving where he wanted to move them. But they're just different size guys, I think, from my perspective, Randall, on that one. Back to the Christian Michael combine here. Double check that I'm right on this. Because he's a little bit back. So he was 5'10", 220. Wow. So he was 220 pounds. Boy, Michael held that in real well there with that. Interestingly enough, too, Washington actually outran him. There's a 3-inch difference. That's the thing I think, Randall, I'm getting stuck on as much as anything is the 3-inch difference. You know, Mike Washington 6'1" and long-legged, and Michael was 5'10" and built low to the ground. But Washington's much quicker, much faster than Michael. I thought Michael did better than the 4.5. I think his pro day put something up pretty crazy as far as a 40 time goes. But Washington at 4.33, 151, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy stuff right there. A little bit different backs, though. I like to call Mike Washington type as more of kind of a slide and glide runner. And Michael is more of like the Walker type, where just very twitchy, very sharp with his cuts, cut on a dime, stop and start, dead leg. They're those kind of back types. And this guy's more of that, you know, it's a little more fluid looking-ish in how it goes. It's a little bit more ballet. Is that how you say that word? Ballet. Thank you, though, Randall. Appreciate you, brother. Good to see you in the house, man. And Randall, this is a in joke between me and you. The Randall, the hint is himiny. Okay, Randall? The hint is himiny. Only Randall will know what I mean on this. Hey, Josh, nobody wants to pick a 32, at least not enough to make it worthwhile. I'm not thinking this is going to be the year that's probably going to happen, Josh, to your point, for the reasons being that it is probably a second round graded player that's there. But if there is a guy like, let's say, Caleb Banks, for instance, that falls to 32, and Banks is looked at as kind of this, in a draft without a lot of freak shows in a draft without a lot of guys with high potential. Here's a guy that's got the high potential. Does some team fall in love with that enough to say, okay, well, look, we take him, we trade up from 12 to 32 here. We'll throw Seattle a 4th round pick, and we're going to be able to get Caleb, who we've got a 1st round grade on, and who we think has maybe even Chris Jones-like potential, so that if he is that good, now we can do a lot of the same stuff that Seattle just literally did with Jaxon Smith today, being that, you don't make them play on the 4th or the 5th year of their contract, but that you can stack the extra years beyond that to have better club control to keep them in tow if they do blow up, if they do become a star. Addicted. Brandon, just Google what players were drafted after Gray in round 1. Lots of better players. Gray was a need and a value pick, but a need. That's what I just kind of did a second ago, but I'll show it. Let me show it up on the, deal. Let me share my screen. Boom. I want to make sure, hold on, make sure this is turned off. Bang. So yeah, in my opinion, there's not anybody there that I'm saying I know is way better than Zabel going into the draft at that moment. And I don't think any of these guys necessarily in retrospect. James Pierce had a really good rookie year, but James Pierce is he's not a fit type for the edge that McDonald's going to look for in his scheme. On top of the fact that Pierce had the whole, I think, issues off the field that probably would have given John Schneider pause. Jackson Dart was not in play. Donovan Jackson, I think the team has obviously a higher grade on Zabel, being that they went with him instead as a guard. And I can understand why they would have taken that approach. I made the case on Golden. I don't think that the team would have drafted Amari and Hampton. With the running backs they have on the roster, I don't think Amari Hampton was worth going in the 1st round. Derek Harmon, what did he do in his rookie year? I didn't have a higher grade. I didn't have him with a higher grade than Zabel, nor Jada Barron, nor Emeka Ibuka. There's really only one guy you could probably go on this list of 1st rounders here that you could make that argument to, and it's Jihad Campbell. Because you could say, well, he was the best inside linebacker in the sport coming out of the college last year. But absent that, who's the guy that they had higher rated on their board of these guys? Josh Connerly, Tyleek Williams? I don't think so. I think that they had their eye on those guys I aforementioned above. Tedoroic McMillan, Michael Williams, Tyler Booker, Warren, Loveland. I think if any of those guys had fallen on in there, then you got a bit of an argument there at that point, Addicted. But I think with these guys, I think those are ones they looked at and they went, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, no. We don't have, the fit's just not quite there. But it's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Donut Fingers, Brando. With the addition of Wilson, what Seahawks running back are you most excited to see next season? Ooh. Well, I guess of the guys we got on the roster right now, it would probably be Wilson. We got, I think, to see what we've got in Charbonnet Foley last year, as he really did take to this system, and him having a kind of year that Walker was able to have and really break out wouldn't surprise me in the least. I mean, you hear John Schneider gush about this guy and his work ethic, and it does make you kind of think with it starting to come together with him that it's just a matter of time. But if he's coming off the ACL, and I don't want to have a lot of expectations put on him. The thing that really stood out to me with Wilson is, I think there's a lot of what they do in the Packer offense to live in shotgun to accommodate Love. And I think with Love, there is still some problems with processing and with seeing the field clearly, especially when it comes to with him under center in the drop back game. And so they have to do a lot of marrying stuff to kind of, I think, make things simpler for him. And within that, you have a lot of moments there where now the running backs got to operate out of the RPO kind of game when it's not really an RPO run. It's not really run option for the quarterback. It's more of a run pass option than anything else. And so running backs are not going to have as much effectiveness typically being able to go downhill out of shotgun. Some backs are good with it. Some backs can be even elite with it. But most backs are going to be better getting out of under center, letting them get some build-up speed to their spot. And with Wilson, he is that kind of guy. Give him an opportunity to get up to full speed, and now he becomes a back that's not a power back per se, but has power elements to his game. And when I watched the cut-ups of him last year of Wilson and his attempts, when you had him out of shotgun and running out of that, you could see that there was a little bit of, this is not what I do comfortably. Charbonnet is a little bit like the same way, where I don't know if Charbonnet is a pure guy that I'd like to keep in shotgun. I'd like to have that guy getting the build-up speed, coming out from under center, having the play action. There is always a back pocket situation that the defense has to kind of keep in the back of their mind there. But with Wilson, when he gets up to speed and gets downhill, and especially the outside zone game, because I thought when we signed him initially, it's all inside and he's going to hammer and it's A&B gap runs. But this guy would get outside, get up to speed, and guys come up to tackle him and they bounce off of him. And it's, again, not that he's a power back per se, but just his size speed combo at that point is one where he becomes a tough tackle. And that becomes an archetype of the Shanahan system. That back doing it that way, I can see why the team gravitated in the manner they did to Wilson, because that's the type of running back that essentially was created with Terrell Davis. But then we had a lineage of backs beyond that fit to that same archetype, which is that you're a little bit more explosive and you're a little bit more faster than the average back. And then hopefully you got a little bit more extra size to you, just a little bit more extra girth. Not that you're fat, but that you got a little bit of extra so that when you're getting up to that explosive speed, number one, you're getting to the spot at the right time to spring the running game open. But then number two, as you get out into the open and that safety's got to come from the side angle to try to take you down, he might just ricochet off you because he's arriving a little bit late and he's got to try to just throw his body at your legs, and you're just moving too fast and you're too big to be knocked down that manner. You need to be wrapped and rolled if you're going to be taken down like that. And again, not a tackle breaker per se with it, but I think he's got a style with that could work really well with our outside zone system, especially being able to do it more consistently than he did with the Packers, where they kept him out there in shotgun probably a little bit too often. And remembering they did that because protecting Love, but also he was kind of their third down back, giving Josh Jacobs a blow in those sort of situations. Nicholas says, I think Schneider wanted Kenneth Grant, but Dolphins took him at 13. I could see him being another one of those guys that was maybe on the radar for that spot too there, Nicholas. Yeah. Thrillows asked, how did Mike Green do? He was the all hype, same with the Cincinnati guy that held out. Yeah, I don't think Shamar Stewart did a lot either. Green had a little bit of a slow start throughout the year. Shamar Stewart ended up having 1 sack on the season, so not the best of runs there for Shamar Stewart. I think, 3.5 sacks for Mike Green, so not a lot from him either. He was kind of late to the stage there. I think Rashad Penny's retired. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what they do with Jason Myers at that point too, King. I mean, kickers can play till they're 42, 43 years old, but he is getting up there in age. And that contract is going to get kind of expensive there. Kieran says, call me crazy, but Spoon ain't worth another market-setting deal. Love the kid, love the hustle, a nice chess piece, but top of the market demands INTs, not just tackles and PBOs. I think it's just down to what does the guy bring to the table and does he help you win football games? And if you put 11 Devin Witherspoons out on a defense, I'll show you a dominant defense. I think it's kind of arbitrary to just pick iron interceptions, because I can show you a lot of cornerbacks in recent years, like a Deron Bland, for instance, or a Trevon Diggs, that get you a lot of interceptions, but then there's a big price that they pay for those interceptions. They give up a lot of yards, or they're not very good tacklers. So it's to me where it comes down to like, are you dominant at your position? And in Witherspoon's case, he is. He just doesn't dominate from a traditional sense. He dominates as a tackler. He dominates it with his versatility. He dominates it with the complete aspects of his game. And I think that the interceptions will eventually come a little bit more with Witherspoon, especially as he gets to live a little bit more on the outside and permanence. But that's the other part of this that's so important of this is that, not as he all those things that I just said, Kieran, he's also a guy that allows you to be able to live in that nickel-based defense, which is what makes this defense inherently go. If Emanwari's not out there, he's the guy in there. And if he's not out there, who's the guy that you can trust in the slot as a slot corner to play the position like a linebacker, to tackle like a linebacker? It's a fundamental portion of this defense, I would say. So I get where you're coming from, and I understand why there's a definite value to a cornerback that can get those interceptions. But I would also say that, there's a lot of things that can build value in a player, especially for what he brings to the stage. I think it's well worth it. Banker says, Brando, I know you're into BPA for pick 32. Are there any other positions you value more? Dunker replaces Bradford. Yeah, that's one where the thing I always talk about with value, Banker, is that when value can cross with need, that's where, like a Pirates map, X marks the spot. And that's where you jump, you run to the podium. So Dunker is definitely, into that range for me for sure. But, he's not the only guy. There's definitely some fun prospects in this draft. There's some fun guys there at that selection where we do pick. I think there's almost like 4 different corners you could take that you could make the argument to me are BPA. They're all very similar in their game, quite frankly. They're all very similar with their upside. They're all very similar with the safety of their floor. Being a Colton Hood, a Brandon Cisse, a Chris Johnson. Shoot, throw Avion Terrell in there if he happens to last, to us there at that spot. I'm not really picky on that place as far as, again, I don't think I've got a guy that they're going to come in and shock me with. I'm just going to hate as a pick. And there's a lot of guys in there that I make a lot of sense. Cade McDonald, if you want to go defensive tackle in there, there's like 3 different edges from Zion Young to Derek Moore to Danny Dennis Sutton. I could see the team falling in love with for various reasons. I think receiver goes off the board at this point because they just don't think the team is showing you with some of the ways they've gone about this receiving position with their signings that they like this class that much. I think that this does speak to them looking at it going, we're not really feeling this one. But is there a position I would value more for the value there versus Dunker and him being my kind of one that I love? No. But I also don't think that there's an opportunity as much to do 2 different things. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. With Dunker, I get the first bird that I'm taking out is I've got his flexibility of being able to play 4 positions and the insurance policy he brings immediately into next season to be able to handle all those positions and to know I've got the depth there to be able to handle that. I talked earlier in the show about how vital depth was to the football team last year to when we went out with trade Tyrese Knight out there where Drake Thomas came in and ascended above Tyrese Knight. Kobe Bryant went out of the lineup and Tyakata ascended above where Kobe Bryant was even at playing wise. So, much of the same way, if I can have depth that I can call upon and it's not just empty talk, that he's able to match the performance of the guy that was starting, I think that that's huge, especially when it comes to the offensive line, which I still do maintain as being undervalued throughout the National Football League, in which this organization had undervalued for many years. And the second that they started to value it is the second we got back to a Super Bowl again. So there's the first part of the bird with this banker, which is that. The second part of it would come to the upside and the potential that on top of that, or maybe even superseding that, I might have found myself a massive upgrade for the right guard position. I'm not as hard as others are on Bradford in that I don't think he's some black hole for the right guard position on this football team. But could you stand to find an upgrade there, especially considering he's going into the final year of his deal and probably is not part of the long-term solution there? Yeah, you could. And I just, on those other guys I mentioned, I don't have necessarily a higher grade on any of them than where I'm at on Dunker as far as my outlook to him on his upside. They're all very solid. They're all very worthy of being taken at that pick where we're going to be selecting, but I don't know that one guy's blown me away over the other in that item of things. Baba Yaga, Brando, do you remember how talented Turbin and Michael were? Too bad they didn't develop. Indeed. Yeah, they pulled out some pretty good talent, man. They did. I think in Turbin, you saw those big old biceps from John's case, and the biceps got him. He couldn't deny the power of the Turbin bicep. But, yep, he definitely was trying to make sure that running back position was well stocked up, and with Marshawn running as strong as he was, you got to feel like they were just worried a little bit that Marshawn was going to run into that injury wall at some point or another, and they were trying to make sure it was reinforced. You can see what they were doing in theory there. It just didn't work out in practice. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, I say, see Michael, workout warrior, guys, not natural. Indeed, he was a workout warrior. My goodness. Thank you, Randall. Thrill House, thank you for the $2 donation. What Hall of Fame comp Imanwari could be most like? Woo. Charles Woodson with the Packers, Thrill House. I think that's about it. And Woodson's not the same player, especially at that point in his career as what Imanwari is right now. But this is the unicorn of unicorns. When you look at slot cornerbacks in NFL history, not just slots, but a guy that can be used in the slot, can be used as a linebacker, can be lined up as a safety. When you look at the amount of players in NFL history that have played the slot, even at his size, we could probably count it on our hand. And then if you look at the elite players that have played within the slot, few and far between. And as much because of the reasons for why our defense does what we do, which is that we can live in nickel. And every other team in NFL history has only been able to partially visit nickel. Nickel is a vacation destination for them. It's not their home. With us, it's our home. And so that allows him to be in this real unique position, locked into that unique position, almost snap in and snap out. But I can't think of any players in my life that I'm able to put him as a slot corner and then I can put him as a will linebacker. That's very unusual. And then the fact that you combo all that up with the fact that the man runs 4.3 at that size and length, that is completely in a unicorn position. But Charles Woodson won a Defensive Player of the Year award from the Packers, playing in this kind of slot role, sometimes a little safety, sometimes a little bit of outside corner mixed in here and there a little bit, but really just kind of this rover role within the defense almost, and was able to dominate. But there's just not been many baselines of guys like this. You know, there's maybe some Kenny Easley there, maybe a little bit in Imanwari's game if you're looking at the comp there a little bit. But even Easley, I don't think played very much in the slot. I think he was pretty much in that safety box, safety, free safety. He was more, I could do the strong safety, free safety stuff back in the day when nobody could do it. But Imanwari is unique, man. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Harold Perkins was the next great SEC linebacker. Got hurt, coaching change. What do you think of him as a chess piece? Will his game translate? Round 4-ish flyer? Well, I think Randall, we're pretty close here, Randall. Give you a little bit of a view here, guys, of some of my updated big board. Because why not, right? You guys got nothing to do. You ain't got nothing to do. You can check out my big board. Look at the big board on Brandon. All right, Randall. So Randall, great minds must think alike, my man, because of the fact that, as you can see here on my horizontal board for defense, I have got my guy right, bang, right in there in the 4th round, Harold Perkins. I might put him above Whit Weeks at this point, his running mate there at LSU. And he is a guy that was blipped up on the radar for me. Kind couple of years ago there, taking a look at him as a guy that was part of this run of edges that are able to do the off-ball linebacker stuff, but then also come off the edge and do them both very seamlessly. And it's not one where there's where he looks uncomfortable or a fish out of water when you ask him to do one or the other. I mean, he's legitimately got some explosiveness and some bend. There's some similarities to like a Jalen Walker last year coming out and what he can do in his game. And so, a guy that can play in coverage and make a jump on the ball and very explosive. And the fact that he tested today in the manner by which he tested Randall is not surprising to me because of the fact that you could see that explosiveness on tape a couple of years ago before he tore the ACL. And we know with John Schneider, he's not been hesitant about looking at guys that have had their ACLs torn in the past. The one thing is, I think the value with him is you want also to take advantage of what he brings as a pass rusher. And I think when it comes to what he brings as a pass rusher, there's going to be more of that Walker build, which might be a little bit not quite as long or not quite as big, is what Mike McDonald's going to want from his edges off that side of it. But he's going to be a phenomenal 4th round get for somebody because this is a draft that's missing so many players with upside. And here's a guy that's going to be in day 3 that you can actually get with legitimate upside who provides you a ton of versatility. I mean, this off-ball linebacker that can rush the passer off the edge is becoming the de jour type position in the NFL right now. So he's an interesting guy from that standpoint. I like him quite a bit. His tape's fun, and it's good to see him recovered off that injury, Randall, because he was obviously a guy with some game-changing talent a couple of years ago. HHG, thank you for 31 months as a Hawks Nest member. He says, I was in Jesse's chat. The Niner fan was saying, we're done. Yeah, that's partly why I wanted to go live today, was that I was hearing some of the stuff online from people about this contract, and it's a bit of a litmus test at some points or times on some of these people and how they look at these contracts and actually kind of trying to understand the deals or allow a headline to sort of float their entire direction of their opinion on a situation, which is a bit of what I think is kind of happening here. But no, we're far from done. Let everyone say that. Let everyone nationally say that. Let our rivals say that. Let our rival fans say that. Do it again. Do it again, you guys. Don't learn your lesson. Don't overlook us once again. I like us in the underdog role. I like us with everybody talking their noise about what we're not going to do. In the day,
we did not care.
And we're going to go out. We're going to kick ass and take names. We're going to win a ton of football games, and we're going to be right there in the dance again at the end, and you're going to probably have to come to our house once again to get it done. And good freaking luck. Thank you for 31 months, HHG. Randall, thank you for another $2 donation. Appreciate you for that, Randall. Is Dunker a better prospect than Tate Ratledge? Ooh. Yeah, I would say there's a marginal more for me with Dunker than Ratledge. And I think the reason would become, I think that Dunker moves a little bit more fluidly and naturally in space. I think as well, just a little bit of maybe just feels like a little bit of a better athlete in Dunker in what he brings, which is of course more of the better fit purely to the system that we're running, but they're very close. I would say, Randall, they're right there neck and neck. I mean, both guys, I think I had a 2nd round grade on. So it's like a difference of probably 10 picks as far as positioning goes in the difference, but both are probably guys that'll settle in as right guards, when it's all said and done, and be very good high level right guards at that when they do. But yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. I like Tate Ratledge a lot. He was nice. Good rookie year too. John Naylor, thank you for the $5 donation, John. Just looking at our roster versus last year, even with 4 picks, we have real opportunities to improve the team. We have the best front office and coaches. Indeed, we do. And John has now set the stage real nicely here to be able to go in this draft and really not have to reach for any kind of needs, to pick full for value. And that's a big part of picking for value, is that, yeah, you can have that ideology that you want to do it, but if you haven't taken care of business in free agency and then you get into the draft, you start to feel the pull to jump out that window and to hop into to the side seat of sit shotgun on need. And so John's, you look at this roster now, you're 4 deep at defensive tackle, you're 3 deep at edge with a little bit of need there, but that's also one where you could do a post-June first sort of signing guy, and it's all set and sound. So that's really not as even much of a need as a fourth edge would be anyway. You're 3 deep at cornerback, plus you're 4 deep at cornerback with Nehemiah Pritchett. You've got a multitude of safeties in here. You've got your linebacker core pretty well set. We brought him back in Surratt as well as kind of that depth piece guy that could be the special teamer as well. Starters are there. So your defense is all pretty much set. You can kind of go wherever you want to go. Obviously, safety you could address. You could address corner. That stuff's helpful. Like you say, that when you come down to improving the team, John, what allows you to do that is when you pick to the value gives you the difference maker. The difference maker gives you the player now that potentially is better than what you have on your roster already because you're picking for that value. And that's how you then can improve the team, even with picking at the back of the rounds, even with having only 4 picks like you mentioned. And I think it's absolutely the truth here in this case. It's not made easy, but it's not mission impossible either. And as much as anything, because you're riding high and you have the confidence and you can really stay in that pocket of not extending outside yourself because you can just trust in the faith of the process to bring the results that it has just recently. Roster's really well put together right now, John. You've got the starters, you've got the depth, you've got difference makers that have emerged. There's not that draw to have to go find that guy either. You can kind of go whichever direction you want to go here organizationally, and it's a beautiful place to be because it means you're going to be able to maximize a market opportunity when one arises, which has been my whole point about them waiting to strike. The opportunity will arise to strike, to go make that aggressive move, to put us back over the top, to get all those pundits suddenly going, well, we thought they had lost ground, but now they gained the ground back, and now they might have overtaken the team that gained the ground that we thought had lost the ground, but then they gained the ground to gain the ground over them. They'll be doing that move. They'll be going in circles like that. So that move is going to be had. That move is going to happen. But you set the stage for it by taking care of business first, by getting the gotta-dos knocked out. And that's what John's done so far this offseason, man. Love it, John. Appreciate you, man, for your support. Miranda McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Nickum comps, it's really about versatile defensive backs. Slot was a lot less prevalent in the 80s and 90s. But my mind went Ronnie Lott. That's an all-time guy. Ronnie's great. I love Ronnie. All-time heavy hitter in this sport, bar none, not just for his era, but all time. I mean, there's hits that he laid that you might get arrested on the field if you were to lay today. They might charge you with attempted unaliving if you did that today. So Ronnie was a great player and a guy that made this weird transition to where he went from safety to outside corner once he went to the Raiders from the Niners later in his career. You talk about being just wildly athletic and fast to be able to make that change. But I don't think he played a lot of slot to my memory. But like you say, it just wasn't very prevalent in the 80s and 90s. Teams tended to be in more of the base defense, just kind of living in that manner of things as much as humanly possible. Slot receivers really started to gain prominence into sort of the mid-90s. That's where you started to see a lot of guys come forward there, and it became a specialized position as much as anything else. But it's hard. There's not a lot of baseline of guys that have been like this, say nothing of guys that have been built like Nick Eamon is, Randall. But Ronnie was definitely a hyper flexible guy you could use in a variety of different ways, including you want to even put him at linebacker occasionally. He could play. I'm sure there's a couple snaps in there of Ronnie at linebacker with the 49ers here and there. A little bit. John Naylor, thank you for another $2 donation. John, Randall, you guys are just awesome. Appreciate all your support. 49er fans base hates it. Super Bowl window closed by the Hawks. Yeah, there's been some definite copium going on with the Niner fans. It started about a week ago. You guys saw it. You saw these postings on there of like, Seattle won a Super Bowl that nobody cares about. Niners and Rams are going to be playing on Thursday night in the NFL season. So like, that just like, kind of shows that like, the NFL doesn't really see Seattle as an attractive, like opening game of their season for them because like they're having us in Australia play instead. Kind of shows how cool we are and how like uncool they are. There's like no heat. Like they start speaking, they're literally on conversations like this going online where you're like, what are you talking about? There's so much twisting and turning to sort of just ignore the fact that, and I keep having to say it on the roundtable at times on some of the reactions I get, not from my fellow cohorts on there, but some of the comments we get in there where I'm like, we're the Super Bowl champions. They're chasing us. Y'all can talk about what you think's going to happen in 2026. Y'all can come up with all these wonderful visions about how the Niners are going to do this and how the Rams are finally going to get one more for Stafford on his way out of town, right? You can come with all your little dreamed up scenarios. Didn't matter last year when you had them, and it ain't going to matter next year either. And I do think that there's a part of the Niner fan base that understands is they're well acquainted with their team and they're well connected to their team. And as positive as they can sometimes be in what they do and how they do it and go after their content creators who aren't anything but just ultimately Lombardyites 24/7, they know what they're looking at. They see the headline today come out while you got your two receivers brought in, while you got your superstar receiver brought in here. They read the headline that there's no progress made between Trent Williams and the Niners. There's still a gulf there. There's still a mess of a situation there. They can look at the Brandon Ayuk situation and understand that their front office is acting like a bunch of children. Why doesn't he want to play for us anymore? And he wants to go play for Washington. But he signed a contract with us, and now he wants to play Washington. And I don't want to let him do that. We're going to hold him until Washington doesn't have any money left. And then we're going to release him when nobody wants him. Man, there you go, Brandon. We showed you. See what you did? See how you're punished now? Wow, you really showed Brandon Ayuk. I mean, if I'm a Niner fan looking at that whole situation, that whole team, everything is going down with that team, I'm just going, what are we doing? I feel like we're firing in the dark right now. That there is what is the plan? Is there anybody out there in the chat right now that thinks the Niners last year, as they go into like next year we'll be in a contract squabble with Trent Williams. We'll have Brandon Ayuk out the door. We'll be bringing in Mike Evans as a go for it type of move on. You go, what are you doing? What is going on? But we did close the window. We shut it. They don't want to hear it. They ain't going to like it. The Rivals did it. We won a Super Bowl in their house. There's a little bit of trauma I think that we've got to build in here too, John. We got to acknowledge the fact that this is a fan base that's now been traumatized. I mean, we've walked into this division 20 years ago and just took it over for them. Their dominance all but gone for the occasional Super Bowl losing season that they would allow to pop up here and there and every, one here. Okay, we got to lose again this year. Okay, now it's time for us to lose again. Absent that, it's us and the Rams that got them. And now you're looking at, it's been that way the past 20 years, and now it just looks like it's going to be all that much more the way for the next 10 years going forward. So that's traumatizing. That's 30 years, man. That's 30 years. We renamed their stadium, man. They can never fully clean our funk out their building. It's permanent. The cigar smoke, the champagne, the confetti. Some guy 10 years from now is going to be pulling some Seahawk confetti out of some little portion, like an attendant in the stadium. He's going to be like, oh my God, look at, God, there's still stuff here. I thought we got all this. Is this that's Seahawk colors? Is that from the Super Bowl at Seahawks were here? Yeah. Jeez. Okay. But well said, John. Thank you for the don't know, man. Appreciate you. Gala says, here's an interesting scenario. If Caden McDonald falls to 32, that'd be good value. Indeed, it would. We go back to, great minds think alike. We go back to my list here. Who's my highest graded defensive tackle in the 2026 NFL draft? For my money, it's Caden McDonald. So Caden McDonald falls to you at 32. You get the best defensive tackle in the NFL draft. I understand it's not a need, but at the same point in time, Jaron Reed's probably in the last year of his deal. Leonard Williams is in the last year of his deal and might retire after this year as well. Smart teams get out ahead of things. Dumb teams react to things. So what would that deal be? That would be a get out ahead of visionary kind of move. And I like Caden he's also just a fit to this defense. He's an ass kicker. He's a bully on the defensive line. He's the type of guy that you want to put four guys on the line and have him beat the ever-loving hell out of an offensive line for 60 minutes. That's the kind of guy that you go get. He's good. Yeah, Jordan C. Michael was just a freak athlete. He must have tested like a 4.3 at his pro day. I swear he was faster than the 4.5. Just doesn't seem right on that one. How Have a good one, Megan. Appreciate you. Hey, Josh, the only rookie Pro Bowlers in the 2025 draft were Warren, Duke, and Shadur. Interesting. Dick, you're mad at me for having the opinion that I think he was the highest valued guy. I mean, at the end of the day, Dick, neither of us know the answer to this question. So there's no reason to get frustrated with a topic that neither of us really know the true answer to it. Jackson Dart might have been the pick there in the first round over Milroe. Maybe. It's hard to say on that one. We don't exactly know where the team's opinion was on Dart, or if that was a pick that they saw that there would have been value on getting that in the first round. Don't know, or if they've got the high upside to him. There's elements of Dart's tape that I could easily have said, hey, we're going to have Clint Kubiak come in here to run a rhythm-based offense, and we're going to ask this guy to come. I don't know. I'm not that. I think you're willing to take a guy in Milroe that you have the same questions of that, but that does erode down his upside as a player. When you have a guy that's been living in shotgun, RPO game, and you're like, okay, I got to teach him from stem to stern how to play under center, footwork, all of that stuff. I mean, the guy didn't even call hikes. He just clapped his hands on every play, for God's sake, in college football. So there's a lot of things that go in that evaluation that easily could have, for a lot of teams, dinged him down past where he even went in the draft. I don't think the Giants grabbed him there addicted, because they just thought that's great value for us to be picking this guy there. We can obviously see that a big part of what drove the Giants to pick Dart in that spot had to do with their own quarterback position and it being a need-based pick. I mean, that's kind of a tell in itself to me that you have the Giants grabbing him there where they did, and that it also is a pick that he ends up starting there almost immediately. Kind of tells you that they understood that this is a bit of a need here. And that in itself means you can't, I don't think it plays both value on that, whereas the value, it could have been more value and need intermixed there, I guess, maybe. But again, I think there was variance on Jackson Dart, and he was not a no-brainer first-round pick by everyone's measure. But again, bottom line on this too is that neither of us know on this. So we can all guess, but nobody really knows one way or another about where that value goes. The one thing I can say for sure, Addicted, is that when I look through their picks over the past few years, maybe you and I have got some disagreement on this particular pick, but when we do look at over the picks over the last few years, be it Cross or Lucas or the running backs you took or the two edges that you took, all of those picks you can look at and say were the highest value picks you had on your board. So then the one certainty would be that if we agree on that, your certainty on that would be that, well, this was the one pick that you decided to diverge off of. You've been going consistently all the way on it through this in this manner, but this is the one that you're going to now kind of jump away from that on, which makes it a hard sell to me on that side of it as well then because of it too. Because you're operating so consistently in this fashion, but this one you're going to jump out on this particular first round pick. I don't know. Who will be our running back 1 and 2 this upcoming season? Probably Charbonnet, McIntosh, Hololani, Wilson. It'll be a 4-man combo stack. I think that they're going to make another move at the running back position at some point or another, but the timing of that might be all the way up to Mel Kiper. That might all be all the way up to the trade deadline that we have to wait on something like that. Dolphins, let's say, don't get a contract extension done with A-Chain. So they try to kind of wait it out to where they can get a good value for him to move him at some point between now and that trade deadline. Same thing with a guy like Breece Hall, where the Jets maybe don't get an extension done with him. He's on a franchise tag. They go, okay, we'll trade you to Seattle for this, and Seattle will pick up the last of the franchise tag this year, and then they'll either get you on extension or let you walk after this year, and Seattle ends up giving up like a future third-round pick or something like that. Brian says, I'm not going to grab a defensive back just to be a ball hawk. Can they cover and can they tackle? That's my main interest. Do that, and the picks will come. Amen, Brian. Give me the full meal deal, man. Catalyst is picking up what I'm putting down. Look at Diggs and Bland on Dallas a couple years ago. Interception machines, but had snaps giving up big plays in coverage as well. Absolutely negatives as far as the run, tacklers go in the run game. Josh brings up a good point about the ball hawks too. When you see what you see with a lot of elite cornerbacks is that they have one or two heavy stat years, INTs and PBUs. Then they go way down when the quarterback stops throwing them. That can also be the other side of what you'll tend to get with some of those guys, right? Then they don't get the opportunities to have those picks. And so then if they're not really good blitzers, tacklers, run defenders, and those, let's say that they're negatives in that, but they're great at taking the ball away. Well, now everything becomes a little bit diminished on even the plus skills that they bring to play if they're not having those opportunities. Kieran says, let's not pretend Spoon didn't get thrown on at times too, folks. Ha ha. He's a core piece. I'm not saying they don't pay him. I just don't put him at the tippity top of the value market. I think that's very fair. I get where you're coming from, man. Again, too, if you just want me to respond, question, comment, just put Brandon B. And I will respond on in. Bubba says, Brando, do you remember the real Mike Robb report? It was pure gold. If you haven't checked it out, seen it in the chat, definitely go check it out. Robb report was great. He was ahead of his time on that stuff too. But it was always fun watching him and needle Marshawn Lynch. I know. Sorry, guys. The draft board is not super clear on that. I got to get it prepared to make it look more viewable for you guys. Got to get like a graphic put together. Trying to find a way to make it more readable. We did not care. Play that again, Brandon. Absolutely.
We did not care.
Kieran says, the statistical reality is probably there's at least 1 year in JSN's contract where he's on the IR. Possibly. Yeah. Stuff definitely comes up with that. And when you come down to all these contracts, there's no contract that's without some risk on this stuff. Risk is inherently a part of the NFL game. And you just you try to mitigate as much as you can, but you're also just trying to take those educated guesses as to smart move or a dumb move. Nia says, let's be for real. Weiner fans and some of the 12s whine about JSN being overpaid, have the intelligence equivalent to Patrick Star from the SpongeBob SquarePants. Tate Ratledge or Keon Rutledge, right guard from Georgia Tech. I'd have Tate Ratledge they're both, again, guys right on top of each other. I've got a second round grade on Rutledge, so they're literally, for me, addicted. Tate Ratledge's grade last year and Rutledge's grade this year are neck and neck. Visor, Kelsey, 52, 3 years. Got to essentially be a 1 year deal, right? It's probably kind of a 2 year deal. But we got to see the details. It could be some buried money, but I would essentially think that it's more than the 1 year deal because they're trying to lower down the first year cap hit. And if they're doing that, then they're pushing too much money down the line for it to just be a 1 year deal at that point. Unless they're just making a plan of like, we'll make one more year run at this. And if we don't push through, then we'll reset things a bit. Maybe there could be a little bit of that at play here. Yeah, I'm not a fan of YouTube's word suppression either, man. But they get you on the bad word you say and they'll hit you for it. Kind of sucks, but it's the way of the stuff. Thank you, Stewart. Yeah, listen, I'll always hate the 49ers more. That Darren guy who shall not be named proved that several days ago. Amen. Oh my gosh. Some of the comments from Niner fans in the past, I thought what woke them up the last week and a half, they just started popping off with some ridiculousness. I don't know why I expected better, and I like the Osa trade for them, Catalyst. Not a bad one there. That was actually that one and the Greenlaw move. I like those two moves. Some of the other stuff they've got going on, though, it just runs counterproductive to whatever they do on the positive side. Dead money they got to eat, or always some contractual drama going on. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk's gone. They're not bringing him back. They're not going to be the Max Crosby return to peace thing. Nope, not happening. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, Lott drafted as a corner out of USC. Played both safety positions at a Hall of Fame level. He and both Rod and Charles Wood played all over defensive back. Could have done nickel. I wouldn't have short sold him on being able to do it. That's for sure, Randall. It was just a matter of they were a little ahead of the time on the structure of NFL offenses. That there just wasn't many of those offenses going. But yeah, we could probably find some cut ups if we look deep enough, Randall, to your point, on old Houston Oilers games when they're running the run and shoot with their 4 wide receiver looks. I bet there's a couple times we could probably find them when they're playing the Niners that you got to see Lott up there and up on one of the 2 slots at that point on the field. I could definitely see it. So, and the fact that he transitioned back to outside corner as his career was winding down and still played, if I'm not mistaken, at like a Pro Bowl level for the Raiders. That's just such a phenomenal transition and speaks to the level of athleticism he had and speed he had, because you're losing a step. It should be the other way. You know, you go from being corner, outside corner, you lose the step, then you become the safety. You sort of take that track so many other guys have done at times, but instead he went the other way with it. So great player, man. He was a great player. Definitely could have played him all over. And we could probably find some of those snaps out there, Randall. You're right about that. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for that. Banker Elpries, thank you for the $2 donation, Banker. Give 49er fans a VCR to see their last Super Bowl win. That's where I've got to maybe not give them such a hard time, Banker. You know, we're all out here winning Super Bowls recently, and it's been for them 3 decades. And you start to get in your feelings. You start to dream things up. You start to artificially make your reality what it isn't in the names of hope. And we shouldn't rob a man or women of their hope. We shouldn't be those kind of people. I should be bigger than that. And yet I can't help myself. It's going to be a cold, dark day in hell, Niner fans. You're waiting for a while. It's going to be a while. Mike Evans ain't saving you. He ain't saving you. You're done. Done. Shunk. Hear that sound? Shunk. That's your Super Bowl window. That's not the sound now. That happened about a year ago. Well, you guys are just a zombie, just a walking corpse. I called him a zombie last year. The ears have fallen off. The nose has fallen off. They're the ghoul from that show. And they're just about that stage where they're starting to talk to themselves, get lost in their memories, and completely forget about who they are. They're right at that stage, Banker. The Warhammer Guy. Thank you for the $10 donation, Warhammer Guy. Some Hawk creators can be condescending when people disagree with them, like Nemhauser and Staten. You've always been super inclusive with everyone, even if they disagree. Never change, Brando. Well, and me and Addicted are having a little bit of back and forth bit today, and I love having it. And me and Addicted have had many other times in the past. You know, we've had disagreements. I think it's certainly something that I know that I've had myself, that I can be this way at times too, despite you saying so nicely that I don't. I certainly can. And it's always a place that I hope you guys would always check me if I start to fall in the direction of going that way. I think that it's never the intention of guys, even those 2 guys you mentioned. I think it's probably not their intention if it does have moments of like that happen where, you know, they're trying to come off in that way, and that's, you know, that's not to say where they're trying to operate from. It just comes off in that fashion. And it's certainly a place that I know in myself. I've caught myself sometimes in other shows I've done after the shows go live where I say, well, wow, I didn't, you know, wasn't as trying to be open-minded there on that one. And I was being a little bit, you know, well, I'm just going to close down to this. I don't hear any of this. So I appreciate you saying that, man. I definitely try to make sure I'm be mindful of that, because as much as I've got a microphone and a camera here and a channel here, it is not put me in any sort of place that has some sort of like, I got some better understanding of it than any of you guys out there. I'll have strong opinions. I'll push back. Of course, we'll have debate, but it doesn't mean inherently within my heart is that, well, I know more than anybody else out there knows. So I'm right on everything I say. Quite the opposite. And a lot of people sometimes will ask me why we go so long, of course. And a big part of that is the learning experience I get from going in the chat and the different ideas and discussions that we get to have that just kind of ends up having me come out the other side of this a little bit more educated myself on what's going on, a little bit better understanding than I had going into it. But it's kind of you to say, Warhammer. I appreciate that. And don't ever let me slide in that way. You guys always can check me in that manner if you guys sense that I'm drifting in that direction, because look, it's there can be a draw to have that happen from time to time. You know, we're all humans in that way. But very kind of you to say, man. I appreciate you, brother. Quite a bit. So does Pumpkin. She comes by to say, hey. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. Randall, wonder about a running back drafted 2 to 3 years ago, round 3 to 5, who never hit with a team, who can go for the cheap. Nobody specific, just a buy low scenario with talent. Wonder about a running back drafted 2 to 3 years ago, round 3 to 5, who never hit with the team, who can get got for the cheap. Well, it's always hard to predict on exact guys that are sitting out there on the market that are this way right now. I mean, looking at the running back free agent class a little bit this year, Randall, I would offer to you that it's kind of if we look at recent years past and the running back position and running back contracts like you're talking about, where, you know, maybe there is some of those guys that are available that are kind of, you know, in that realm, like you say, that are just kind of, you know, depreciated assets that, you know, essentially just haven't gotten their opportunity. A little bit like, you know, sort of like, who we go, kind of a little bit like what we got from Rico Dowdle last year for a heartbeat there. He had gotten opportunities with Dallas before, but kind of in that manner of things. I think what makes it hard is that, you know, when you look at the available free agents as we go down the list of guys that are here in this realm. So, you know, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson, Nick Chubb, Raheem Mostert, Kareem Hunt, Jeremy McNichols, Alexander Madison, Miles Sanders, Brian Robinson, Amir Abdullah, Khalil Herbert. I think that the issue kind of comes down to that there's really not a guy there that's sort of like that. There's not that guy that's sort of not been given the opportunity, who's actually a pretty talented guy, at least from my memory banks on these guys of having a lot of these guys looked at their college tape coming out and scouted them pretty heartily. There's guys that certainly could fit to this system and could find some success maybe in this system, but is there a guy, you know, because you do put with talent at the end of your donation there. So that'd be where I'd go. If I go with talent, then that means that I'm not just getting a guy in a vet minimum deal who is essentially just a jag, just another running back, a guy that's going to give me league average performance for the position. Like there's league average performance for the position, and then there's superstardom for running back position. And then there's a whole lot of in-between areas that exist as far as on that spectrum. And so I'd want a guy that's up at above that bare minimum spectrum there. And I don't think I look at these guys that are available right now. Travion Williams, Amir Abdullah. It's a very lean time for running backs. It really is, as far as on the open market and available. And I think this is also kind of partly for a reason, Randall, being that teams are also probably recognizing that this draft isn't necessarily the greatest for running backs either in recent history. And so like a weak receiver draft would cause there to be not as many wide receivers available on the open market, which is another thing that we're kind of seeing here in this free agent period. You're seeing a lot of teams get out ahead of this by locking their guys down and not allowing them to hit the open market. So it is one right now I would offer to you as one where I love where your head's at. And if there is that guy, then I'm certainly looking to jump on him with 2 feet. I think you also have the kind of general manager who would be on the lookout for that type of guy if they become, you know, if they do exist out there to be had. But as I look at the list, as I go through the available guys, it just looks like there's just not anybody there that really foots the bill to what you're asking for. You know, you got a lot of guys that are kind of long in the tooth, coming off injury. Best days are probably behind them. You know, and like you said, you're looking for that talent. You're looking for that guy basically going into his physical prime, which would be a great find. But I think it's hard in this one, man. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, I have 49er relatives and they are still salty and in denial. Oh, it's deep denial, John. It is deep denial. That's how they start to get to things like, you guys don't have the heat behind you. What is the heat? What are you talking about, heat? You guys don't have any kind of juice. There's no like NFL national juice behind you guys. You're just quiet as Super Bowl winners in NFL. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Who cares about heat? Who cares about, you know, capturing some spirit of America? I capture the spirit of the Northwest. I capture the spirit of Hawk fans worldwide. That's what we're worried about. But I've seen a lot of this grappling, and I don't know if it's maybe like Niner fans have gone through their like 5 stages of grief when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl in their stadium after beating the freaking pants off them twice. I don't know if it's that. I mean, if there was anything, one thing that would cause that to occur, that would probably be it. But boy, does this last week and a half, some of the stuff I've seen them mention today, watching some of their reactions to the contract to JSN, watching Lombardi start trying to post videos on why it comes up. I don't know, his crap comes up on my feed because I hit ignore constantly, but it's like, doesn't work. Still comes up on my feed where he's like responding of how like Lenore's like held Jaxon Smith to 1 catch and 2-3 match. Like, what are you guys doing? Is this your chase for greatness? Your chase for greatness is to try to knock our greatness down a peg? It's you don't have to catch up to us. If you can just take the grappling hook, put it up around our shoulders and pull us down, then you can get us down to you. Good luck. Good luck with that strat, Niner fans. Revenger, thank you for the 159,000 IDR. Appreciate you for that. Very kind as ever. Dropped a variety of different donos here recently. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I love it. Chances of Puka bouncing to Vegas next year. He will demand big money, and who's going to be the Rams' next quarterback after Stafford? C. Puka will be the type of player that will push for his interests. Well, I definitely don't think that, to your point on that, I don't think that Puka strikes me as the kind of guy that's going to be willing to stay on this rookie contract for another year. He's 3 years through his rookie deal. He's outperformed his contract. He was a day 3 guy. I don't know how the Rams can come back to him in any way, shape, or form and say that you've got to wait another year to be paid here. And so if that was going to be the case, then they would just be looking to move him already, in my opinion. So I have been kind of looking at the Rams situation and thinking that they're going to have to get to a spot of making a tough decision somewhere. They've got like 4 major contracts that they have to give out. And at the spear tip head of it is going to be Puka Nacua, who's now going to eclipse the average per year of JSN when he signs his contract extension, or at the very least match it. So, do they have the space to get all of that done? They could get it done. They can move the numbers around to get it done. But could they also end up looking at that situation and saying, and you look at how they've been kicking the tires on A.J. Brown, for instance. How is that going to work? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Puka Nacua. Well, what if you made a move of an A.J. Brown and then you moved a Puka at the same time? That move makes a little bit more sense as to why you did it then. Not saying they're going to do that, but and I'm not saying they're moving Puka either, but I am saying that the Rams are probably turning over a couple of different options here. For Seattle with JSN, it's a no-brainer. He's being signed. We're getting this done. With the Puka contract, I could see you for where you're standing, where you're sitting, where the future is going. It being a decision that requires a little bit more thought process applied as to what you really want to go do. A little bit more uncertainty as far as how to exactly structure things right. Random McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, I think it's time to call Wayne Gallman. Oh, it's one of my favorite things ever was to be able to text you at one point, Randall. Randall had a lot of Wayne Gallman love back in the day. And 1 second here. He had a lot of Wayne Gallman love back in the day, and then Seattle ended up signing Wayne Gallman, which was hilarious. I remember that. That was freaking awesome, Randall. Yeah, I wish there was a Wayne Gallman out there, man. Closest that you're going to get is going to be like, Michael Carter, Miles Sanders, doesn't quite move the needle in the same Gallman way, does it? Doesn't kind of cause that needle to jump like the Gallman factor does, Randall. Mr. Stewart, the 49er is like the Seahawks' weird uncle who gets arrested. So true. With his pants down at a playground. Darren's back in hibernation. Stupid needs a rest. And Kieran says, Kelsey just got told by Taylor, I am not going to pay to have you sit at home all day podcasting with your dumb brother. That's real talk right there. Bankers says, Brando, does a clip of the 2011 NFL draft quarterback selections exist? I don't know. I haven't looked it up. Jacob Benson, how do you feel about taking Pons and making him safety, kind of like Kobe? I'm open to it, man, Jacob. I think that there's certainly a lot of intelligence behind this that you might, in different other systems and other teams, you'd say, well, you don't want to do that. But in this system, in this team, you have a McDonald, the guy that on his secondary, the more his secondary players can do a variety of things, the better. If I can get a safety who's got a cornerback background, chef's kiss. It is the ultimate. So within that, to have a guy in Cody or within that, to have a guy in Pons that's been able to make that transition. This is the same transition Kobe made, same transition Julian Love made from college as well. And you do wonder with Pons, otherwise, what is his outlook? Is he really going to be able to hold up and make it happen as an outside corner? Or is he probably going to have to go be a full-time slot at that point? If that's going to be the case. And if that's the case, then maybe just going to the safety position is the best thing for him anyway because of that. But I like Pons a lot. I mean, I think you're speaking to a little bit of your confidence or reference, the fact that he can make the change to the position goes to just how feisty and the get after it kind of spirit he brings to the position that's unique, and that you can see where that tackling ability and just some of the, you need those safeties to be a little bit like, honey badgers out there a little bit. And he's got a little bit of that vibe and aura to him. Throughout didn't Lott lose a finger in the game? He had the tip of his finger was tore off, and they were going to try to stitch it, and then he was going to have to stay out of the game, and he just told him to cut it off. Just the tip of it. Just the tip. He said just the tip. And it was the pinky. Donnie, Hawks Nest, Brando, and all. Hope everyone's first weekend of spring was well, despite the passing of Chuck Norris and Nicholas Brandon, and CBS News closing its doors for good. Sad day in that way. Rest in peace, Chuck. Rest in peace. Molly, thank you. Keep the great content. Thank you. Appreciate you for that. Donnie says, Hawks Nest, and also despite Seahawks Star Trek Starfleet Academy ending with season 2. I neither hate nor love that show. It's complicated for me overall, neither perfect nor terrible. Well, I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I've been hearing from Star Trek fans over the past couple of years, they haven't been loving some of the directions the modern era has turned. Dicton says, Brando, I think someone asked this before. If the 49ers don't make it to the Super Bowl, does John Lynch get axed or Shanahan get axed? Different opinions on BPA, an example of why your room is fun. 100%, man. I love having difference of opinion here. And like I said, I can be a blowhard for sure. I say this legitimately from the bottom of my heart. I've got definitely blowhard DNA. But it does not speak to where my heart really lies, in that I do really find that my value is as intelligent as you'll find with people that think very deeply about this sport. And it is, as I always like to say, more of a think tank than it is some dude who's trying to give the end all be all on opinions. It's more of a think tank, more of the interrelation of all of us on this and what we're doing here. And I love it about this place. I have a hard time with getting the place of Lynch getting axed. Could he become a scapegoat for the situation, a sacrificial pawn, if you will? Yeah. But I mean, how much power is Shanahan already wielding in that front office as it is? And if he's wielding all of that power, what does flipping out a de facto head really do at that point? A figurehead, not a de facto head, but a figurehead. Let me say that right. Probably doesn't do a whole lot. So I would think the ownership would be well aware of this if it goes this way, and I don't think he is. I think the ownership came back 2 years ago, last year, before the year, and they said, we're going to tighten the purse strings on this, and I maybe will not hold you to as hard account because I'm doing that. After all, if I ask you to eat $100 million this year, and next year you're going to have to eat another $60, $70 million in dead money, and you got an older team, we're going to just get by, but let's just be better than average. Let's play around with the playoffs. Let's keep our fans excited. And maybe that'll satiate them. That'll keep the fans coming in the stadium. We'll keep packing the house. We'll keep printing money. So I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on that one, but that's my kind of soft guess. This guru of the power station makes them play at superhero levels, then injures them. The power station, they're never going to live that power station down. Catalyst says the Lynch drafts have been rough of late, but at the same time, Shanahan's been stingy with playing rookies as well as take advantage of talent in Lynch drafts. True, but then again, it comes down to how much are potentially Shanahan picks. It's kind of like they've got a little bit of a microcosm of the Carroll Schneider dynamic playing out there a bit, where Shanahan's not necessarily the vice president at hand, but he does, by all accounts, wield a lot of power in that building. Jordan B. Is Tony Pollard a potential trade candidate? Assume the Titans think they can compete this year, but I like his ability. Yeah, it's probably an open division there where they're probably talking themselves into it a little bit. And it does seem like an open secret at this point that the Titans are going to probably end up going with Jeremiah Love, which, yeah, you would think would make Pollard maybe a little bit more able to be moved at that point. Pollard's not on a super expensive contract, though, Jordan. And the thing to consider with this is that the Titans do, I think, right now have about as much, if not the most amount of cap space. In fact, they do. They've got $64.5 million of cap space for this upcoming season. So they're not impelled to need to save money to get it done, which would probably lead me to believe you probably end up going both the two backs there as you'd go into the year, But it's possible, maybe. And he's been very good for them. Callis says, no way Puka doesn't get extended. This is it for the Rams run. Fisk, Verse, Young, Kitchens, and 3-0 linemen will threaten to leave. I get it, man. And I'm not predicting. I just kind of can think in the back of their mind that there's, especially with some of the wildness he's had this offseason. I mean, we've seen this kind of archetype from receiver before, right? The Antonio Brown kind of projection, the Odell Beckham kind of projection, where it's like they're already a little bit of a live wire before they get paid. And then it's like, once you get paid, it's like Ryan Clark once said, you only become more of yourself. They only become more of what they already are once you give them that kind of money. And the Rams may be well aware of this. I'm not saying they're not going to pay him, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a little bit of hesitancy on their part going, hey, are we going to have some regrets on this one? Les Snead and McVay doing shots, tequila in the middle of the night. And like, you sure you want to do this? No, I'm not. Karen says last year, the NFL was weird. The parity was simultaneously much improved. And at the same time, wins just migrated from the high quarterback teams to other teams. And we were one of the main beneficiaries. Indeed, it was a little bit of a strange year last year. Those happen from time to time. He says, if you expect the NFC West to absolutely run train on the league again, I'll be shocked if that's the case. Yeah, I don't think they'll be to the level of dominance they were last year, Kieran, for sure. And especially they're not collectively not going to have the same kind of easy schedule set up in the way it was last year for everybody in the division. That's going to be definitely impactful. I could still see it being one of the strongest, if not the strongest divisions in football again, but not, like you say, blowing the doors off of the rest of the divisions by far. We practically lapped the rest of the divisions. Brandon 5177. Let's not be doing that. That's a good way to get banned, man. Okay. Well, I don't usually ban, but you are banned. Peace out. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. You're not putting those kind of words in my chat, bro. I'm a patient man. Holy crap. You want to go 0 to 100 on me. That's bam. See ya. Thrill Alice Brando, did you ever get into Peaky Blinders? I did. Yeah, I watched a good 3-4 seasons of it. I did feel like by the end there, I was starting to lose a bit of interest in feeling there was a repetitive nature. sort of like a theme that just keeps getting, okay, I get the point. Let's progress this. But beautifully shot movie, really well directed, good storytelling, phenomenally acted, great cast. Yeah, very, very good show. Very, very good show. I don't know if I'm as interested to see the movie because I just got to by that last season there, I was just kind of like, it just was starting to get to that point where it wasn't kind of clicking in for me. Sorry about the guy on the, sorry about the racist that we had come in here for a moment. This mopo. Koken says, Brando, which teams are candidates to trade up to 32 and what picks would we pick up? It all kind of depends upon kind of the level of desperation you're talking about. It also depends upon how far back you are ending up moving at that point in the draft. As far as, do you go back from 32 to 20th in the second round? Well, then that probably picks you up a third round pick and maybe even a mid third round pick or pick in the 20s, essentially, kind of equivalency there to that. So if you only go back 10 spots, then you're probably looking at a fourth round pick, but maybe a high fourth round pick, which is probably more of the feasible one for where Seattle wants to trade back. We go back to like 12 in the second round, and a team moves up there and grabs at that point. I think that more than I would say it being about teams per se, Koken, I would say it's more about the player that would be available there that could draw the attention at that spot and could be the one that then, you've got just some different, it's more about, kind of like the option guy that becomes available. So an Anthony Hill, team loves Anthony Hill and has the highest grade on him of any off-ball inside linebacker in this draft. And he's there at 32 and they pick at 10 and boom, they get their starting inside linebacker and throw us a fourth round pick to do it. Or Caden McDonald. Somebody else matches my outlook on it that he's got the highest grade of any defensive tackle in this draft. We love him. We want to trade up to go get him. Or Christian Miller that I know has a lot of heat from certain teams out there, the Georgia defensive tackle. It'd be more about like these kind of guys would be there. A Ty Simpson maybe would be up there. One of the cornerbacks that a team really loves, like Brandon Cisse or Colton Hood's up there. And they're over the moon with them and they want to trade up to go get him. So it'd be more of like that. It's a little bit like us making the trade for Nicky Manwari last year. It's kind of hard to pick player team on this one. It's more of like, do you have a track record of teams trading up to that spot in NFL history for a variety of different positions, variety of different player types? And the answer is you do. You do still need the fit. You need that team that's got the hot to trot spirit for that particular player at that point, but it does tend to happen. Gunny says a Star Trek fan is terrible. I have heard some things, Kieran says, did you know the food replicators in Star Trek just reconstitute poop? Everyone is eating poop. Well, I mean, if you don't know. Odds Rams draft wide receiver 13 for leverage versus Puka, likely. I would have to think so if you don't have a contract done, banker. Because being that live wire status, you don't get the deal done because he's wanting to be paid here and you don't want to pay there and you got a club control for one more year. And you kind of know as the Rams as well, like, if we played hardball and we pissed him off this year and then we had to move him after this year, is that the worst thing for us at that point when we hit the reset stack as opposed to paying $43 million per year for him on a new extension? This is one where I don't fault the Rams on this one, banker, right? This is more of just like a lot of contracts coming up. You're at the end of that Super Bowl window. This is what happens at the Super Bowl window sometimes when you hit the end of it a little bit or you get close to the end of it where decisions start getting tight, money starts getting a little bit tighter. But I think that I think that just you can almost see this from the interest of maybe an A.J. Brown alone. I was joking that you would have moved Puka and then A.J., but it's like you keep all three and then you have your leverage for Puka through that method as well. So, I certainly think that it's in play for you guys, especially with how you've taken care of the cornerback position so that that's not a need for you now at all in this draft. And it allows you to operate from the value. And then you have on top of this, banker, where very easy to see a reality where the highest value on your board at that point at 13 is in fact a wide receiver up on your board. where it's a lemon right there. Or even a Jordan Tyson. God, that'd freak me out if you guys got Jordan Tyson. That's canon. The Orville did seem like it was a better show as a parody. Baker says, Brando, I have a theory. The 28-3 choke job is still plaguing Shanahan. Well, don't forget, it goes beyond that, though, too, because he's had a history of doing this, Banker. I mean, you had the Kansas City Chiefs one as well. There's lead in that game. And what is it? I think they went 10 straight plays in the second half without running the football with McCaffrey. Like, he forgot halfway into the game that he had Christian McCaffrey on his roster. And so it's become a little bit of a meme now. It's become a bit of a thing even within the Niner fan base and their outlook of Shanahan. You could literally find Banker Niner fans even a couple of years ago that would say, Kyle Shanahan's an amazing coach. Kyle Shanahan's got an amazing offense. Kyle Shanahan's Achilles heel, though, will never allow him to win a Super Bowl. Being that, and I don't know, I agree with this, but they would try to tell you that he will blow these big leads. It gets in his head, and he, I never like talking about that stuff in quarterbacks or coaches because it starts to probe a little bit into the psychological. But in his case, there is some people out there that even within that fan base that would tell you that there's a little bit of reality to that. Yeah, I'm telling you, that Niner, the kid that came in there, he's just all racist and then showed himself to be a Niner fan. It's like Exhibit A. I'm telling you guys, the last week and a half, something's happened with their energy. I don't know what went down. I don't know what's going on, but they're tilting. They're tilting hard and fast. And we need to step out of the way of this car crash that's about to happen. I don't know when it's going to hit, but somebody's going off the rails a little bit, Threllout says, love the scenes with Tom Hardy, then got bored. Yeah, that's kind of where I was too. It just started to be like less unique, and you started to kind of hammer those same sort of themes within the show, in my opinion. And yeah, the Adrian Brody, Marlon Brando thing, that was a choice. That was definitely an actor's choice right there. I don't know if I would have gone with that one myself. Kieran says, B, if you had to bet today, Hawks just put Sharps on IR for a majority of the year and run through running backs until someone sticks, or we get it with our free agent draft pickups. I'd bet the Rolodex approach, or we get it with our free agent draft pickups. I think there's going to be a bit of a Rolodex approach in the thinking that Sharps is going to be back and able to be near full strength at some point this year. And part of this problem takes care of itself, where with Sharps, you'd wonder a little bit about load balance coming off an injury, but if he doesn't play through some of the first part of the year, that you then have him a little bit theoretically fresher as you get through halfway into the year. I think you're right, though. I think that absent them being able to find a way to make a move for like an A-Chain or a Breece Hall, they're going to more get by at the position and trust in the fact that they've got a great wide receiver core. They've got a great tight end unit. They've got 5 offensive line starters returning with depth, and they've got their quarterback with a second year in this offense, with a second year with that supporting cast, and there'll be improvements from that alone. And I think we'll see if there's something else they do, but I think we're in the same place. Simple says, yeah, Tom Hardy picked the show up when it started off slow. I like Sam Neill's character too, Juge from Jurassic Park. Sam was really good in that role too. Yeah. Playing kind of a villain. He did it really good. And Tom's awesome in it. Totally unhinged Tom Hardy. Nia says, Weiner fans are like COD players. All bark, no bite. Hiding behind a screen, but cower in the real when confronted. I love it, man. Let's go. Very true. True words have never been said. It's pattern recognition with these Niner trolls. I'm telling you, they are a type. Ram fans aren't like this. I was noted that last year, we got into the playoffs, end of the year, they started coming up out of the woodwork. Like, it's rivalry week. Let's go. Cuddy says the Niners shot Ricky Purcell after practice. They're insane. Curious, let's not forget the 49er fans stab people at preseason games. So I wouldn't go pushing if you show up at one of their games. Ha ha. Well, I'm going to tell you that, Kieran. Like, we're doing a roundtable event probably next year in Seattle. I'm going to be hard pressed to want to do one in San Francisco. Like, I got to go in that stadium. Do you know how many people want me dead in that stadium? I'm not putting my life on the line for roundtable. I will not do that. Baker says, if you read breaking news, 49ers signed Debo, do you laugh? Do you A, laugh, B, laugh, 3, cry, laugh, 4, point, and laugh? All of the above. And isn't it just more fitting to the type of what they're doing? It just kind of like that right there there'd be no more signing this offseason I could point to with the Niners of being like, yeah, see, this is an exact snapshot of what their approach is and how they go about their business and why it's missing any kind of vision and just sort of let's do it in. Let's bring this guy back in. Let's try that out. They're just drunk. He says, Weiner fans are just like Eagle fans, just softer and more cowardly. They're cunning nonetheless. Oh, yeah. Hey, Brando, you think we get a Witherspoon deal done before the draft? I thought with both Jackson's deal and JSN's deal that they would have gotten done after the draft, just after the draft, kind of like June-ish. With that said, I think part of this was done because JSN was willing to be kind of accommodating in how you structured this deal. So it kind of comes down to if Witherspoon's is willing to be as accommodating as JSN is, specifically stacking the 4 years of the new deal on top of the 2 years of the remaining rookie portion without any real major new bonus money, then probably the deal can get done earlier. If he's going to want some of the new bonus money thrown on top of this deal, which I would estimate most guys do want that, then he's going to probably have to wait a little bit. But it still gets done before the start of the season. Kind of all depends on that. Baker says, I need Brando to show up at with his gangster Sam Darnold shirt with the Super Bowl ring. I would probably wear that too. That's the thing is if I go into the Niners stadium, I'm going to go hard. I wore my Largent stadium in the Rams stadium. I walked through I had my Largent jersey on walking through the whole tailgate session. So I wouldn't be shy about it, but I'd know that there'd be a good chance I might get shivved. Somebody might break a knife off in the back of my kidney. You know, I wouldn't put it past him, man. I've watched Niner fans fight Niner fans in Levi Stadium. You can go look up like a montage collection of Niner fans fighting themselves in that stadium. Good luck finding a video like that in Seattle of Seahawks fans. You won't find it. You're fighting yourselves. And isn't that really what a Niner fan is inherently in its heart? Fighting itself, rooting for a team that will never get there. You know they're never getting back there. You know it. They'll get close. They'll break your heart. They'll never get there. Thrillhouse Brando, 12-man rising says we're talking to Von Miller. I'm down with it. Could never imagine having Tank Lawrence and Von Miller on the Seahawks. What a world it is here in 2026, huh, Thrillhouse? Makes sense. Von's openly lamented many different times just this offseason, him having the offer on the table, him having that moment of being able to pick between Seattle and Washington. And he's picking purely, as he has said at that point, who's going to take me to a Super Bowl? I want to go to that Super Bowl ride. I want another test. I want another bite. I want that swing. Give me who's got the best chance. I'll go with Washington. And bit him in the butt. So you got to wonder if that would be pushing a little bit in his direction of being like, you know what? We're gonna right this wrong. We're gonna make this work. Tape phone books on your body. go in there with body armor on and a helmet. He says, Brando, to Levi's Stadium is like when Lamar Davis choosing to hang out with Franklin at only night if choose A or B in GTA if you've ever played that. Oh, that's very true. It would be a GTA game moment right there. And fitting the game's coming out soon if I had to do that. And they're going to probably want to do it next year. If we do Seattle this year, I'm sure it's going to be Levi next year. Ugh. I will not be looking forward to that. I might have to take a few of you with me in there. I might need some security. Like legit. A few of you might have to fly down. I can only have my head on a swivel for so long. You know what I mean? They're going to catch me slipping. Gary says, no, Seahawks fans just blowing smoke, joint smoke in people's faces. Ha ha. They come in peace though, you know? Oh, yeah, glad to see you finally replaced DK's jersey with the JSN's, Brando, laughing out loud. I did. I'm going to still put up DK's jersey. I just have to hang it, but I'm going to hang it behind me, I think. So I got a frame for DK still. He's not gone permanently, but you guys were nailing me about the DK jersey, so I had to make the change. Nick, did Hawks fans only fight other Hawk fans if they say it was right to not hand the ball to Marshawn or they won't pass the joint down the line? Very true. Very true. Baker says roundtable at Arizona with 110-degree weather. Yeah, it's a little warm down there, especially if it's an early season game. Corey Combe, thank you for the $5 donation. Corey, I'll go with you to San Francisco like I did in LA. We can get the same hotel room, leave the game walking back to back so we won't get jumped. Hey, bet. I'm in, Corey. I'm down. And thank you for jumping. I think that's right. You were out there at the core of the LA event. We had a couple of Hawk fans. That was awesome. Bet, man. I'm going to need you down there, man. I can't go in there alone. You know, Jesse's going to leave me my own. He's going to be like, you got to learn, man. Jesse's going to walk me in the stadium and he's going to walk away from me. I'm like, where you going, Jesse? You're not supposed to leave me here. He's like, man, they barely like me, bro. I got to worry about my own problems here, bro. I can't be having you right now. I might get hit today. That's how it works here. But they're your people. They're kind of my people. They're sort of my people. But they're most especially not your people. You're on your own, bro. This is what we do with our children too here. You let them out in the state, and if they come back alive, then it's like the Spartans. They deserve to have a life. But if not, then they lost them, and that's the way it goes here. I don't get what they do out there in Santa Clara. I don't understand the rules, but those are the rules. So bet, man. Bet. Luckily, I think we're going to get Seattle next year, Corey. So we get the home stadium. We'll get the home experience. I'm looking forward to that. But I know the year after, it's going to be Levi. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the donation, man. And thank you for coming out this last year out in October. A couple of Hawk fans came out and joined us out there, and that was awesome. We had Rams and Niners playing, and you guys hopping out that event. And I know the roundtable was jacked. We were able to sell out all the tickets on the event, and we had such a great turnout. It was such a cool experience too. I had so much fun on that. Not just meeting the boys, but seeing some people in person like that. And it was a great time. I had maybe a little bit of too much of a good time, if you know what I mean. Maybe a little bit too much on my side. I learned a very important lesson on that trip, which is that you don't have margaritas on an empty stomach. Who would have guessed? I mean, who could have known that after over 40 years on this earth? Who would have ever have learned that lesson? Come on. Talk about left field. Gunny says GTA 6 is coming out too. They can't push us off again, Gunny. Come on, man. They pushed us off 17 times. I better be in a virtue suit if this thing gets pushed off another year. You know what I'm saying? Like, we better just be skipping to full virtue suit because this is all I'm holding my hopes on for the rest of the year here with video gaming. Lord knows Madden's not bringing it this year. Jack, any update on the roundtable meetup? Is it in Seattle? I got to plan in advance if I go because I got to cross the border. Ooh, let's go, Jack. I'm pushing them to get a timeline. What they're waiting for, Jack, will be for two different parts. We've got to get the schedule released so we know the exact dates of when and what's going down. And then we've got to reach out to them, the team, and see what we can get as far as maybe a package of tickets go. since we're going to buy get a kind of a package deal going together on it. So I think that we learned the schedule pretty quickly after the draft, but until we get that actual schedule pumped out, I won't know for sure. But as soon as we get the schedule, I'll be pushing on my back in the background here, Jack, to get them to kind of get us with some official details announced on it. But we will get it because they've got to do it anyway, just to set up all the travel and have us all be able to kind of get everything coordinated with that as it is. So hopefully as soon as the schedule comes out. Catalyst says, God, no, I walked past Levi Stadium a month ago and I was nervous about tweaking my ankle because of the substation. Hey, Ben, I have a great idea. I'll buy a new Seahawks jersey and write the name behind as Niners Suck with number 94. What do you think? Solid. Solid. You walk through that stadium and come out alive, man. Stronger man than I for it. Brian says, if Roundtable goes live in Seattle, I have a connection to a spot that would be perfect. Ooh, let's go. I'll be down, man. We definitely want to do it down in, I think downtown in that area, but I guess, we can get set up wherever too with it. But, somewhere near ideally near the game. So I know Dan's got that one spot, but yeah, if you got a place, that'd be awesome. I'll be getting DK back up there. So simply, I replaced with Jackson, but I'll probably put DK just right behind my head here. I just have to do the old frame it, and it's framed. I just have to put the nails in and all that other stuff on the background, Yeah, I need you to get that 12 jersey. Then the SIGs will never matter. There we go. That's true. I do need to get a 12 jersey at some point. It'll probably be my whole background at some point or another. It'll be just kind of jerseys at some point or another. But the 12 will be isn't a must. Banker says on point 5 Russian KGB bodyguards for Brando. I might need 5 in that stadium. You're getting blindsided. You're getting punched when you don't see it coming. Shivs and machetes. Somebody brought a Tommy gun once, I heard. Yeah, Brandon's going to need backup and Levi like GTA when you hang out with all of the protagonists. I'll be like Trevor Phillips to these Whiter fans. I'm going to need it, man. I don't know if I can go in that stadium. I got a reputation amongst them fans. I don't think yours truly is endeared towards the 49er fans as much as I am towards the Ram fans. Kieran's backing me up on this. He says, a friend of mine got socked in the face for talking too much shit, leaving the 49er stadium after a game. He even was with a friend who he almost roped into a brawl. So I'm not lying, you guys. It sounds like I'm joking, but I'm telling you, they're live wires up there in Northern California. I don't know what it is. Too much meth in them hills. Ross 49ers are like cannibals. It's going to be like stadium full of hills have eyes. Seriously. Corey, I'll be there. Oh, man. Appreciate you having my back, Corey. Let's go. Jax says, Brando, I got you, bro. Been playing hockey for 16 years and did boxing for 2. I'd be honored to smoke a Niner fan DK style. Let's go, Jack. A brawl broke out today between seemingly a strange collection of Seahawks fans in Levi Stadium and a small contingent of 49er fans who were quickly sent on the run when they realized that they did not have numbers on their sides, despite the fact that they were in their home stadium. That's how I see it. Here's it says, no margaritas on an empty stomach. How else do you drink? It's the only way I can get drunk. Oh, I learned that on that day, Kieran. Got in the stadium and it turned into a Vegas casino, where you can't get out of them. Like, where is the exit door on this? Like, how do I get to my seat? Why are these numbers upside down? Yeah, the margarita was dangerous. It hit me quick. I only had 2, but it was like, boom, and I'm a lightweight, admittedly speaking. I don't do very good when I'm drinking. Yeah, I'd be either I think it's going to be either the 49ers or Rams at Lumen. Hard to see the Cardinals generating much heat, Banker. I'm sorry. Cardinal fans know what I'm talking about. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. They're going to have to wait a while on that one. Hey, Ben. Well, thank you. Don't worry, Brandon. I once had a small dispute with Sharks fan at hockey games, so I can deal with Bay fan. Let's go. Let's go. Or Brando can go into Levi passing out VHS tapes, naming 49ers glory days. Seriously, I'll hand him those old Sports Illustrated tapes that they used to give out to the people for the new subscriptions. Do you remember this? Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Remember when that happened? Remember? Laban, hey Brandon, what do you think are the trade values for Haynes and Olu? Probably pretty low. You've got to hope that somebody's still got a really high grade on Haynes from when he came out of college, which probably isn't likely. In Olu's case, he's going in the last year of his deal, probably not got much value out there as well. There's more value to holding on to them as depth than there is in trade. Kind of the bottom line on that one. Hey, Ben says 49ers isn't a problem to me. The real problem for me is to go back to California and how to deal with Rams fans, especially my dad, who is also a Ram fan. Oh, Lord, I can only imagine that. It's, price of being a winner, I suppose, Ben, right? Especially when you do it the way we did it. But yeah, I can imagine that wouldn't have been very much fun. Kieran says, I will say Rams fans in person are much more chill, friendly rivalry, but not a life-threatening event. Yeah, I get that same vibe. And I think the rivalry can be just as heated without it having to get to this sort of toxic place. But Niners just kind of know that one speed for the most part in that way. Alex, thank you for the $2 donation. Endearing Rams fan here. I got your back, Brando. I know you do, Alex. Appreciate you, brother, for that, man. And like I said, there is a bit of a difference on Ram fans to 49er fans on this. And there's some cool 49er fans we get too. But boy, it's just that it's also a level of little childishness, a little bit of like vitriolic rage that's almost existing in the core of their being. I don't know if mommy didn't hug them enough, but there's a little bit of that there at play too, where you're like, why are you so angry? And people were mentioning, maybe it's right, Alex, that, you got to go back to the VHS tape to be able to see the last time you won a Super Bowl. I guess that pissed me off too as a football fan. But all that being said, it's like, take a pill, man. Relax. Appreciate you, Alex. Thank you, man. I got some people. We got a crew going in. We're going to be all right. We might have to swing though. I'm just telling you. Simply says margaritas are chill for me. I still love me a margarita. It just hits me like a truck. I got to eat. I've learned that I'm an old man now. I need to eat before I drink that stuff. I'm not the 20-year-old kid that's like, fill it up again. Kieran says, I'll admit the drunk fan stadium fights in the videos are amazing. They're pretty epic. It's wild to watch too, because it's just like one guy falls one way and you're going down quite a cleft. I mean, those things, those chairs and those seats are like this kind of incline, you're like, you're going to fight on that, huh? That's a decision. Baker, I'm 1.5 hours away from Levi as a Rams fan. We got to defend our homies against the delusional 49er fans. You know what I'm talking about, Banker. You know they get wild out there. I don't know, it's because they're far away from the city and they had to drive so long and it's just pissed them off. Brando, you trying to plead your case to someone at the pre-party about something was hilarious. Hey, at least it's not on the internet. I know. I was feeling good, man. I don't care. I was enjoying myself. Learned some valuable lessons in there, though. That's for sure. Kieran says, I would pay for someone to go tailgating at Levi. Seattle Seahawks swagged out with a big screen TV showing the last 49ers Super Bowl. That'd be cool. Or have a little backpack with a TV screen playing it. David Brandon, mother and father didn't hang out with him enough. Classic line for Full Metal Jacket. It's true. It's true. A lot of latchkey kids in that fan base. I'm sorry, Niner fans. I'm being mean today. Y'all have been popping off though for a week and a half. All right. Y'all got it coming. You've been going off and you've been speaking out of pocket here. Yippity yappity yippity. As a third place team in this division, I don't care if you went to the playoffs last year limping. As a third place team in this division, you should not be this yappy. Very just, yeah. Your Super Bowl is not that important. Nobody really cares about your Super Bowl. You guys it's almost like you guys didn't win. If I just speak enough, then I can speak it out of existence, right? No. Nope. Still defending champions. Last I checked. Yep. Still defending champions. Simply says, bro, we are 2-time champs. It still hasn't sunk in. We really are that. We're on the shit. 2 and 12 years. I'll take that. I'll take that as well. You come up every amount of that time, go get yourself a Super Bowl victory. There's teams that haven't even gotten to a Super Bowl or never won a Super Bowl. It's like it is one where there's teams that have been sitting like this Niner organization that's just been in the, they haven't been in the dark ages per se. They've gotten to 3 Super Bowls that they've lost. But they've gotten some dark times through that period. And it's been a long wait to get back to the promised land, especially when you have those 3 losses, when you climb all the way to the top of the mountain, but then fall just as you're about to reach the peak. Makes it all the much more brutal. But I mean, even beyond that, simply, 4 Super Bowls in 20 years. It's not a bad run. Not a bad run at all. How's it going, Brian? Appreciate you, man. We'll probably wrap this up here as we're getting near the end here. So if you got some last comments or anything, go ahead and please comments, questions, concerns, trials, tribulations, post them on in the chat here. Put a little bit of a button on this one. Koken says, Brando, top 5 running backs in the draft in terms of scheme fit. Early rounds, I like Mike Washington. Late rounds, I like Roman Hemby. Mr. Hemby. Top 5 fits for me would be obviously throwing Jeremiah Love kind of out of the realm on this one. I would probably go with, for just topping pure fits and not talent, to your point, if we're talking pure, just the fit itself, probably would go with, Mike Washington Jr. would be at the top. And I would go with, probably like a Damon Claiborne, Kalen Black. I don't know if I'm pure fits here is kind of what I'm getting stuck on, So I can give you fits, but not pure fits. I think those would be the 3 best kind of pure fits. Adam Randall, Seth McGowan is kind of a 4 or 5 combo in there, I guess. And I'm going outside of talent, right? There's more talented backs like a Jonah Coleman, a Jadarian Price, and a Katron Allen. These would be more talented backs, but you're talking that pure fit where we come back to size, speed, explosion, and looking for the elements of that combination within the system that would work really nice. So those would probably be the ones that I would most kind of gravitate towards. I'm not anti-Hemby, by the way, but I'm more with the running mate. When it comes to the Indiana kid, I just like Black a little bit more as a fit. Runs behind his pads a little bit more power he can run with. Hemby's not bad, just not quite, wasn't quite as much as in on him as I like Kalen. Jack says, my favorite is the 49er fan trying to mock us for the opening game on Wednesday instead of Thursday. Like, bro, I don't care. Exactly. Like they're to the point where it's like, you're not getting the Thursday game. You're only playing the first game of the year, but you're not getting you're not Thursday night. That's the prime one. That's the good one, bro. That's the one that that's the one the NFL cares about, man. Okay. Like that's like the real Super Bowl, bro. Like what, who gives a shit? I don't care. All right, we're playing first. Suck it. If anything, this works out better for us. Play on Tuesday. It's all the much more like a bye week until we have to play our second game of the year. Great. I don't look at it as a bad thing, man. Would I take Caleb Banks if he fell to his Daniel? He broke his foot and only played 3 games and then broke the same foot again. I'm not sure if that can be fixed only by losing weight. Maybe drop 60 pounds, go defensive end. Yeah, I don't know, because he's not necessarily a fat defensive tackle, Daniel. He carries the weight pretty well at the size he is. He's a very much hot and cold player as far as the effort level you're going to get snap in and snap out. When he's connected and he's tied in and he's turned on, the man's as talented as a defensive tackle as you'll find in this draft. I mean, he has snaps you can watch that look every bit like Chris Jones. He's got the body of Jones, the length of Jones, the size of Jones, moves like Jones. And when he's locked in, it's carbon copy. The problem is that it's a lot less than just flashes you see of it, Daniel. And so that would have me very hesitant, because something that you build with this defense is a lot of ass kickers, a lot of junkyard dogs, a lot of guys that are going to give you 100 miles an hour of effort every single snap. And if I got to go grab a prospect where that's going to be a question, no matter how talented he is, I think it makes your defense reduced when he's out on the field then because of it. So I'm not as in on Banks myself. I don't like having to question Everett level up prospects, especially when you're that talented. I start to think you're going to be a little bit more like those 5-star talented guys that have always kind of coasted by a little bit on that talent rather than actually interested in becoming a great player. Catalyst, we did not care.
We did not care.
We did not care. Dick to Brandon, I know Nicholas Singleton's injured, but he does seem kind of close version of K9 the way he runs plays. Would love Washington and Singleton double dip in the draft. I wouldn't be against it, man. I like both those two guys. And you know what's nice about Singleton is because he's broke the foot, you're going to get him at depressed value. You know, you're going to get a guy that you're not paying prime prices for at that point. And that's what you should be looking for as a running back. You know, more than just picking day 3 guys. You can pick day 2 guys. You can pick day 1 guys. It's really, though, find value at the running back position. Don't overpay at the running back position. Lean into the fact it's devalued in the nature and how it runs. And so your approach there would in a lot of ways doing that. And Washington deserves to go, let's say, 2nd round. You know, that's good value to be in that spot where you're picking him there too. So Singleton's nice, man. I like him. I like him, both him and Katron Allen. I'd have them both similarly graded in very much the same place in this draft, almost note for note in the same spot addicted if the broken foot wasn't in play. So not a bad way to go there either. We don't have the testing times on him, so we just don't know the exact explosion with him, but I'm open to it. Responding to randos, we need to figure out how to draft Chris Johnson. I think he'll be there at the end of the 1st round responding, and I think he's definitely in play with the Seattle Seahawks as a potential guy they pick. He is a guy they've met with, which shows there's interest there. Guys that they've met with in the past, you know, when they've only got those certain select number of guys they can meet with at the combine, they tend to pick a couple of those guys every draft. So he is in play 100%. Cattle says, I don't think Mike gives 2 S's about where the NFL has us playing the opener. You will get your asses kicked regardless. Amen. Amen. Daniel says, I love the "we do not care" soundbite. I was there at the game. Crowd went wild when he said it. It's a great quote by Mike. And it's not just an empty quote. It's not just something that sounds good to the fans in the moment. It's the life they live. It's who they are. It's how they go about their business. It's just wonderful. Daniel says, hot take. If Darnold wants top 5 quarterback money, I'd want to trade him next year and go get Mac Jones or just run it with Milroe. Darnold's 2nd half season went into game manager mode. It went great. Not top 5 money, though. I don't think he's going to command top 5 money, Daniel, to your point. I think likewise, if that's where we're going to start to talk, I think that you're going to see John Schneider much more in a position to be willing to move him. I don't think John wants to pay top 5 money. You didn't see him in a race mode to try to find a way to get himself into that predicament after Russell left. And we know that he had a lot of issue with it when Russell was here as far as, you know, maintaining the salary cap structure when he was paying a quarterback that kind of money. And so I think that they're going to be able to find a way to make this work down the line on that. There's a lot of reasons for this, in my opinion, but I just don't see him being able to justify making that kind of money either, Daniel. I don't. It was a dumb question from Strahan anyway. Strahan anyway. It was the media themselves who were always down the Hawks like always. Yeah, I agreed. It wasn't the greatest of questions. Pumpkin's fur pattern on her tail is pretty cool. Just noticed. Oh, thank you, Gunny. Yeah, she's a very pretty kitty. She's a very pretty orange kitty. Dicted Brandon, yep. Washington, Allen, Singleton, 2 of those 3. Way cheaper than paying K9 is bag of cash. Happy for K9 no. And we're talking earlier in this stream where I wanted to get a little bit, you know, I want to get kind of super villain with this with the running back position where you don't go fully into the extremes that exist here, where it's the teams that buck the system, willing to pay everybody at running back position or willing to pay whoever, whenever, don't care about paying money. And then those teams that are just hardliner, we're only going for day 3 guys. We're not paying any running backs ever. Why, you know, what if you strike the middle ground and, you know, let's put draft capital to it, but then we don't pay. And then we kind of wash, rinse, repeat the draft capital of assets when they come off rookie deals. So you're putting quality into the position and market opportunities at that, but you're not overpaying for the opportunity to do so. You're keeping the actual cost of the contracts down low for the full positional group at that point. I like it as an approach myself. I think it's a way that you're able to operate in kind of a territory at that point that not too many other teams also are operating within. Dick to Brandon, will Arroyo and Milroe ever fulfill their draft picks? Hate to be negative, but skeptical here. Well, I mean, I'm skeptical with you on those two players too, Addicted. I'm hopeful. Both of them are certainly talents and certainly have a lot of upside. And you pick them for the upside that you didn't necessarily expect to hit in their first year or maybe even year two. So we'll see with time. But my evaluations on both those players remains true for where I saw it coming into last year. And I hope I'm proven wrong on that evaluation on both those two guys. I really am. And I will acknowledge the talents there in both of them. But I think that my evaluations on both those players so far and what we've seen from them on the football field as a pro have been pretty much right on the point of the truth of it. Daniel says, I'm stoked to have JSN for his prime and our Super Bowl window for 6 years at a similar price per year DK is getting, factoring in the extra 2 years. Amen, Daniel. And that's what you got to do is factor in those first 2 years of the deal where he's going to be very cheap and not just the last those 4 years on the deal. It's a 6-year contract, essentially. Baker Elbreeze, thank you for another $2 donation. And we'll get close to kind of finishing up on this note. What would you tell 49er fans if Arizona won Super Bowl before them? You got the Golden State Warriors nearby. Maybe hope they're going to get back to winning Super Bowls because you're not coming close. It's okay. 2060 is just around the corner. One of those two responses, Banker, Another 40 years, you guys will get back there. Or here's another one. You're almost halfway there, Niner fans. How about that one? I would be probably pretty toxic about it and mean. Dan says, if we trade a second rounder for A-Chain just for this year, do you think we could extend Charbonnet for a reasonable 2-year deal if we don't pay A-Chain? Maybe. A lot of this comes down to what a running back's willing to take and not take. And are you willing to take a discount? Are you going to be like Walker and you want to maximize every last red nickel that you can possibly make because you are a running back and you're not going to be paid very often? I don't know what's in Charbonnet's heart as far as what he wants to make or what he needs to do. Does he love Seattle? Does he not want to leave Seattle? He's a West Coast guy, went to college at UCLA. Maybe he'd be willing to take a little bit of a discount to stay here in order to make sure that that could continue. It's a little bit of a flip a coin on that one, Daniel. I don't know where Charbonnet's heart's at. Is it possible you can get him to sign that? Maybe. I'd be open to doing it, but I think with running backs, they're probably being advised that they need to maximize out their compensation because their careers are short and because their bodies get beat up fast and because they don't get paid particularly well, even when those are in good shape. Dick to Brandon, did you get a third cat? Other day I saw a black cat jump on your lap, but seemed smaller than Xena. Just had to be snooping on this. No, I haven't gotten a third cat as of yet, but I have come close. Xena's just getting older and she's lost her share of weight. And I hate saying it, but Xena's definitely getting closer to the end than the beginning. And so, she's getting around still pretty good, but the diet comes and goes and she'll have moments where we get her filled out and then she loses a little weight and she's just really old. LeBon, Brandon, is there a scenario where we trade Derek Hall for a 2027 first round pick? The only scenario I could see that happening in LeBon is that he comes back next year, tears the roof off, has a 12, 13 sack type season. You then do the Frank Clark approach of franchising him with the full intention of trading him to a team that will then put him on a contract extension. So only by that manner would you be able to pull that off. He would have to do a little bit more than what he's done so far to earn that kind of, first earn the right to have a franchise tag put on him, but then earn a team being willing to put a first round pick on him to make a trade for him. But right now, there's no way he would come close to that value. And definitely when it comes to somebody mentions yeah, 360. I wouldn't say either of those two guys are busts either. And again, it's a little bit of that thing where it's wearing two hats at the same time, where you make an evaluation of these guys coming out that's separate even before you have them drafted, tear through the tape, make the evaluations. And that's where you come to it. You're wrong on some stuff, right on some stuff, but you come to where your evaluation's at. Team takes that player, doesn't change the evaluation, but then it also doesn't change there being hope for the fact that that team is going to be able to realize the potential that exists that player. And last year was one where those guys weren't going to get the real frontline opportunities to maximize where they were drafted in the draft, but it doesn't make them busts and doesn't mean that they can't reach that upside. And I hope that they do. But the evaluations I had for him was, on point. And one of the points of evaluation, for instance, with Arroyo and coming out was that part of the reason I didn't like the thought of part of drafting him in the second round is the injury factor. That's a part that weighs into your evaluation and where a guy should be selected. And as good as the upside is, if a guy's consistently injured throughout his college career, if he's injured in his final quote unquote breakout season in college and then injured again in the Senior Bowl, well, probably going to have some injury concerns going in as a pro. And what he run into in his first year as a pro, but injuries again. So hopefully that stuff gets cleaned up. Story's not told on Milroe or Arroyo at this point, but we'll just have to see. Hopefully they can turn it around. Falcons need an edge rusher. They just might, Alex. Those legal struggles aren't great. Addicted Brandon, sorry to hear Zena is struggling. Sorry I can't give her some salmon snacks now. Gorgeous dark hair, by the way. Super sleek. She's a pretty girl, man. She really is. And she's doing still good. She gets around and, she still finds her way around. And boy, I'll tell you, I've had her for so many years. She's got to be over 20 years old at this point. Karen says the question for Milroe will definitely be, does he take any snaps to prove he's worth re-signing when it comes to it? Are we really going into the season again with 3 quarterbacks in the roster? Yeah, he will. So I still don't think he's ready. And I think the team drafted him with the full intention of giving him the full 2 years before they make the determination about where he's on his progress, because he had so much that he needed to get taken care of to get to being ready to be a starter in this league. And it was going to need 2 years to get that done. So I think they'll still probably roll with 3. Seahawks 360, Milroe needed development. Everyone knew that. If anything, Arroyo scares me because he hasn't grown and the injuries. Yep, 100% the truth there, 360. You knew with Milroe need, and what has Darnold shown us? What has all of these quarterbacks that have come through with this rejuvenation shown us? It's that the thought process of a quarterback having to hit the ground running, sink or swim, is completely wrong. And what you got to do is allow these guys time, because playing the position is as hard as it's ever been, and it requires a multitude of skills that need to be developed in order to somewhat close, not even come to master it, but just to be able to run the position naturally. So that's why I come back to saying you got to give him the 2 years on this one. That was part of the plan the whole way. It was part of the understanding for both the top end talent that he had as far as what he teased to what it was going to take for him to get there. So I 100% agree with you on that, man. And we'll see on the injury front with Arroyo. I mean, then one thing's for sure. If he stays healthy all through next year, it'll be like the first year he's been healthy in 5 years. But he's got some great talent. It's not a question of talent there. There is talent there for sure. Yeah, Sundell still needs to develop a little bit more if we're going to pay him probably. Kogan, I like Hemby a lot. He runs with power, speed, and decisive in his cuts. I also feel he's better in the receiving game than stats show. Good back for them. And I do have a 5th round valuation on him. So I'm not out on him as even like being a guy that's, an undrafted rookie free agent type or anything like that, Koken. There's some things he definitely brings to the table that are nice. And I could see him find a way to maybe potentially fit into rotation. Do we pay Sundell? I think you need to see more development there, especially with maybe the center contract starting to inflate a little bit. And then I think the same thing with Hall. I think Hall, as it stands right now, has not done enough to, if Boye Mafe is worth $20 million this year for his production, And that means Hall is going to be worth $23 to $24 million next year. No, I don't think I can pay that contract right now. I think that's too rich, too expensive. He needs to develop more if I'm getting up around that payday. So I'd struggle on that one. Mafe ceiling has been reached, that's for sure. Alrighty, folks. We will go ahead and I think put a button on this at this point. If you guys can do me that favor here as we kind of wrap this up and hit that like button for me, maybe get subbed on up, helps out the channel tremendously by doing so. And I really, really, really do appreciate it. William says, AB, can we pay Derek Hall? It's where I think it's going to get hard to pay Derek Hall. You know, at the end of the day with this, like, I mean, from my standpoint, maybe I'm old school thinking in this, but if I have a guy that's going to get me like 2 sacks a year, it's going to be very hard for me to pay you $24 million per season, especially if you're probably like about average when it comes to how you play the run. I think that Derek Hall and Boye Mafe both became kind of shining examples this year of people overweighting pressure numbers too heartily and doing so in favor of not having to present the actual brass tacks of the guy just not getting any kind of sack production. And look, I love what he did in the Super Bowl, and getting the 2 sacks is great there, but my man had 2 sacks this year. I can't pay $24 million a year for 2 sacks. And while he had 8 sacks the year before that, a lot of those sacks in the year before that in 2024 were cleanup sacks. They weren't quick pressure sacks. They weren't anything close to fast pressure sacks. They were Bo Nix breaking the pocket after 3 seconds, going way around the pocket here, almost to the line of scrimmage, and then Derek Hall running him out of bounds, and that counted as a sack. So even in his quote-unquote 8-sack year of 2024, not a lot of real pass rush production there, purely point-blank range on that. So I think you need more here, man. We got to be a little careful in how we spend our money. Like we saw this offseason, you can't pay everybody, and you can't overpay for kind of middling production. And if 2 sacks ain't middling production, I don't know what is. You know, Alaban is B as Arroyo's ceiling, that of Sam Laporta. Sam's more of an inline guy. Arroyo's more of an H-back guy. So you'd want to more compare Arroyo to me to more of like a really good receiving H-back type of tight end out there. Now, who would that be? Yeah, probably more like a, Juwan Johnson kind of guy. Kind of something in that range, I think that's more of where your comparison would be at as far as what you hope he could kind of reach to. To me, Laporta's a little bit more of an inline-ish guy. He's a good pass catcher. I mean, maybe is what Laporta brings as a pass catcher to the heart of your question. Addicted Brandon, Derek Moore would be cheap replacement for Mafe. Washington 32, Moore 64, or vice versa. Yeah, value's about right there. You can go either way there, Addicted. It makes sense. I like Derek Moore a lot. He's a fit to this defense. It's good power edge. Kyle Pitts is a little bit too tall. A little bit more about the length with Kyle Pitts. A little bit more about the ball skills. Kincaid's a little bit smaller. It's not a really great comp. Seahawks 360, I'm feeling a lot of growth this year from Hall. I'm always learned a lot from D-Law. I could see him certainly having another level of his game that takes a step forward here, for sure. Coca Brando, I'm sure of 2 things. We will trade out of the first round, and 2, will we double up on edge or corner? Thoughts? No, I think the fact that you brought in a couple of these vet corners means that you're probably going to take 1, but I don't think you're going to take 2. Likewise, I don't think you're going to take another edge because you've got to put a roster together of where you only have so many roster spaces, and you already have 4 defensive tackles that you've allotted for this team. You've already got 4 edges allotted for this team on that defensive line. That's 8 guys on the defensive line on a roster of 53. So there's just not room on the roster to hold a 5th edge, in my opinion. So I wouldn't think at either of those 2 that you're going to double up on them, especially with the limited amount of picks that you have to go through. The big first take I heard on this draft class was the edges and defensive tackles were strong in this class, maybe lacking superstars, but a ton of future starters. Do we think that's still true? I think it's true of the edge class. I don't think it's necessarily true of the defensive tackles. I think you got a good amount of run pluggers, a couple of pass rushing defensive tackles, but I don't think it's incredible. I think the corner group is a lot better. The edge group is a lot better. Dictus says, wow, I had to Google it. Felt like Hall had more than 2 sacks. Holy cow. Yeah. He is gone after this year if he doesn't shake a leg. Yeah. And I don't hate on him. It's just that, like, I was having people in my chat just completely blow this guy up talking about him like he's Lawrence Taylor. And I'm like, what player are you guys watching? And eventually we can play all of the little mind games we want on this one. And we can hide a lot in vocabulary and talk. But the bottom line, you start a whole year, you miss a couple of games, with an oblique injury and you got 2 sacks, rotation or not, like I can find that without having to pay $24 million a year, and I love Derek and I thought he was phenomenal in the Super Bowl. And I'm hopeful he can find that last gear here of development to really kick it in. Because he's got 12 sack a year potential. He's built well enough that he should be good against the run, but just not quite there. Addicted Brandon, regarding Sundell, Jake Slaughter, Barton, someone else catch your eye. I'm more of a Logan Jones guy myself, or go for Connor Lew for upside. Go get the most talented guy in Lew coming off the ACL that he tore in October, or go for the guy that's the pure athletic fit in a Logan Jones, who would be then an improvement over what you have probably in Oluwatimi, with some upside to maybe be your starter of the future there. The Tez is with me. He likes Logan Jones too. Great minds think alike, Tez. Oh, there we go. Simply Sim says, Juwan Johnson, you read my mind. See, I'm telling you guys, we're simpatico here. It's a think tank, man. We're trying to get the right answer on this stuff. Ain't about being right. It's about collectively getting to the right answer on this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? That's the closest I could come to as a Juwan Johnson. Kogan, also Brandon. You're the best Seahawks podcast in terms of depth analysis, which is saying a lot because Seattle has the best reporters and YouTube channels in the league. Keep up the awesome work you do. Well, that's very kind of you to say, Koken, and that's high praise because I want to echo what you had to say, and that I think that everyone out there that's doing this, and I'm not doing this just in the name of just, gassing anything up. I really do believe this as well. As I pay attention to a lot of other fandoms out there that do YouTube and what they cover out here, and I think that we are second to none in what we have as a group of guys that just they work their ass off. They want to entertain you guys. They want to, what they're talking about. They do the research. They put in the work. Really proud of not only our fan base, but the content creators we have, man. But very kind of you to say as well. Love what I get to do, bro. I get every day I go live, get to just chase the dream. And it really is, it doesn't get better than that. You know what I mean? Addicted Brandon, will we see you at Dino's this spring? Need to figure out what the total regular season win total to bet on at Snoqualmie Sportsbook this year. Yeah, I should be out there at Dino's. I'm going to be coming back for training camp, hopefully for about a week. So you will probably be able to find me at Dino's, and I will let you guys know if I'm down that in that area of things. Laban says Arroyo has lots of potential. He does have a lot of potential. Ted says Arroyo ain't an H back. He's an F tight end. It's you kind of say it the same way with this. I mean, it's inline or it's an H-back, Tez. I mean, we get into a little bit of semantics here, right? What's Arroyo best at? He's best at not putting him on the line of scrimmage as a tight end, but as an H-back, a yard off the ball so that he can have a better opportunity to have freer releases, as well as not being put in more of the heart of the situation as an inline guy to have to be a run blocker, at which point he would be exposed because he's not a particularly good run blocker. So he can't really hold up as an inline guy full time, but that's okay because you need an H-back and you need a full inline guy both to best maximize your offense to be able to take advantage of mismatches. So it's no shade to say that he's just an H-back, but he is just a H-back tight end is really where he is going to do any work he does as a pro. There's going to be great work will be done from that alignment or from a slot or from an X wide receiver at times, which is kind of the Benny with Arroyo is that he can be aligned up in a couple of different areas. I'm always the long goodbye, man. I can't quit you guys. LeBron, one underrated position we need is a good coverage linebacker. Certainly would take one, man. Koken, Brandon, maybe this year we don't need edge or corner. I'm thinking next year. Nwosu, D-Law, Hall might be gone. If we don't double up on edge, we're screwed in that case. Yeah, it's possible that there's a thinking of that, and some of this could be instructed by maybe Nwosu's not even on the roster by the time we get to the draft. You can save a lot of money by moving on from him. I think there's just two things that I'm thinking about from John's perspective and how I think he's going about it here. This is a guess 100% though. Okay. So take it with a measure of salt. You've got so many guys throughout. You got so many guys. Oh my God. Yeah. In and out. Can't decide if she wants to go in or not. And this is where it's like Zena's losing her mind, I think, where she's just dementia-wise just hitting. So I don't know on that, Koken. You know, the thing with the drafting of the edges is we're talking about Derek Hall and we're talking about Boye Mafe, right? And as a baseline for John, and when he's looking at that and he's looking at picking a guy basically in the second round off the edge, there's a couple points. Let's put this all together. You drafted Derek Hall and Boye Mafe. Did you get instantaneous returns from those guys? No, you didn't. When you look at second round edges throughout the last about 13 years and you look at the production of second round edges in year 1 and year 2, it tends to be very light. These edges that come out of the second round, I'm not talking about the freak shows that you take in the first round. I'm not talking about Will Anderson. I'm not talking about a Jared Verse. I'm not talking about those guys. The guys you take in that second round range do not produce in their first and their second years. So my point on this to you would be just this, Koken, in that you go and you did this yourself where you know that historically speaking, it doesn't tend to get that production. You didn't get the production from Boye Mafe. Boye Mafe also had only 2 sacks this year in what was supposed to be his breakout year for free agency. Still got paid, but didn't do a lot for you as a pass rusher. Then you got Boye Mafe taking a similar track. Doesn't produce it all for you in the first year. Comes back with 8 sacks with a lot of cleanup sacks in year 2 and gets you 2 sacks in year 3. And so you know this is both a rule of thumb for you and has been a rule of thumb for league wide. And yet you also still know that you'd like to be getting more pass rush production than you've gotten recently from this group. So is then logically, rationally, off the back of all of that basis, does that guide you in the direction of, you know what we need to do? Go get a lot of young edge rushers outside of the second round and hope that they can produce for us pretty quickly. I don't think that'd be the path I'd take if I was John here. I think I'd be looking for more of the valuable edge groups that I can find that are vets who know what they're doing. The Von Millers, the Jadeveon Clowneys, the Cameron Jordans, the litany of guys that are available every single year, the DeMarcus Lawrence that you got last year. And just keep floating those guys through. Then there is no learning of the ropes. There is no figuring it out. There is no waiting 2 or 3 years down the line until the production finally hits. And that's kind of what we had to do with these guys. So this is a guess, Koken, just a guess. It's possible they could go edge. It's possible they could see the value there. But if I'm in John's shoes on this and I'm trying to look at how this has gone recently and the trends, I'd probably try to lean away from necessarily double dipping. I can see you grabbing one. And again, going back to the double dip, if those guys are on the roster, Koken, this comes down to kind of the 53-man roster thing and how stretched that gets you. And oh, by the way, you've got 3 quarterbacks on the roster at all times, right? Oh, no, it's down to 52 guys. Oh, I've got 8 guys already on my defensive line. Can I afford to have 9 with the 3 quarterbacks? And then which position am I going lighter on? Which am I pulling from now as far as I really usually need to have this many guys here, but because I'm grabbing 1 extra quarterback and 1 extra defensive end, see? It's where this gets really hard in roster building, where it's not just pure and simply, I'd like to have 5 edges because we want to build up for a year down the line. It also becomes like, well, how do I put this roster together on a weekly basis, given the needs I have at other positional groups? You know what I mean? All right. We're going to call it on that. Yeah. Kat's getting jumpy here, Coke, and she's definitely like, time for you to call it here. And so we're going to give this one a roll here. So can I suggest a collection in your background? Need a space to hanging Seahawks Super Bowl win new paper I plan to buy. Hey, Brandon, can I suggest your collection in the background? You need a space to hang the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl win new paper. I plan to buy it on eBay, the new paper. I'm not sure on what you mean by the new paper. I'm going to get I've got actually Megan, our mod's going to get us hooked up here with, I got a little replica Super Bowl trophy I'm going to get up from this one, but I got to get some swag. You're right about that for the Super Bowl win. Something in the background. Yeah, they're constantly in and out on the door. They can't stand it. LeBron says, Brandon, since Fleury wants Kyle Juszczyk kind of fullback, do we have that on the roster already? I mean, not exactly, no. You do have a guy that's a former tight end convert to the fullback position, so he's got some movement to him and some ability to be a pass catcher of the backfield, but Juszczyk was a little bit more probably athletic and faster than what you have from Oots. But I also don't think you're going to go out there and be punting Oots to the floor so that you can go get a fullback to suit Fleury because he wants that particular guy at this point. I think you'd be more, ideally, you probably just use one of your athletic tight ends in the fullback role from time to time if that's the guy he really wants in there in those spots, here and there. Daniel says, will you make a Sonics channel if they come back? I mean, maybe. I might. Potentially open to it. It's hard to kind of build that stuff from zero, but if there's interest, we did the Mariner channel a couple of years ago, and I was live streaming those games and doing a lot of coverage on that, and we just weren't getting a lot of the same kind of heat behind it. But if there was the fandom there that was with the Daniel, I'd be open to it. Kogan says that's a great argument against doubling up on the edge. You sold me again. Why I freaking love your channel, and I won't be mad if they do go double dip. It's just where and all this stuff. Kogan is always theory development, right? And so that means really with this, it's like, okay, here's what I think, and here's why I think it. And I've kind of I've put all of the bits together to arrive at this place I think for why I think it, but it's also a guess. It really is at the end of the day. And this team could certainly throttle into a different direction where they say, hey, we love these edges. There's 2 power edges in this class that are pure fits for a Mike McDonald defense, and we love them. And it is a reality here where you've got the contract for Hall coming up. You've got DeMarcus Lawrence maybe on the last year of his deal, and you got Uchenna Nwosu, no doubt, at the very minimum in the last year of his deal. So it's also one where you can see the understanding of it going the other way with this too. But thank you, man. Appreciate you. Evans is going late, Brando. I was just watching some 2019 Clowney highlights. I'm praying he comes back so my jersey doesn't look like a complete waste of money. Me as well, man. Let's get him. Von Miller, Clowney, we're set at edge. We don't have to draft nothing. Trent Puckett will finish us off nicely here with a $5 donation, and we will call the ball on this note. Trenton, you're awesome. Thank you for the $5 dono. Hey, B, did you get a chance to study up on Caden Curry? Thoughts? I have not. Sorry, brother. I really apologize for that, especially with you dropping a donation. Caden Curry, defensive tackle or defensive end here from Ohio State. I have not, but let me right now here. Let me get it in my stuff here. Ooh, this thing's getting deep on this thing. The names are starting to add up. I thought I had written it down, but let me get it in my, he spells his name weird too. Caden Curry. Ohio State. So sorry, I haven't had a chance to check him out, but I promise you this. I probably promised you this last time too. So that's my bad on this one, man. Check with me on the next stream. That'll be my first prospect I'll take a look at here. If not tonight, tomorrow, I'll dive on into the tape there and see what I can see here from Caden. But sorry, I didn't have a chance to check him out quite yet. I got probably a little bit sidetracked the past couple of days a bit on a few of the other. I've been trying to get a couple of the safeties done and a few other things done for a few of I got the corners as well because I got the B&B corner show coming up this week. So I've been just trying to top out the last couple of guys. I didn't have a chance to take a look at on that, but I'll take a look at him for sure. You don't have to do a donation next time. I'll just try to let you know on that when I see you in the comment section on the next stream. My bad, man. I totally had spaced that out because I know you mentioned that last time. Thank you for the donation, though. Donnie, have a go one, man. Go Hawks. Keep it on this channel. That's what we might end up just doing with this. I'm going to be probably streaming some Mariner games this summer. And if that continues to go well as it went well last year when we did it before the start of the NFL season, then we'll keep doing that. And I think I'd just do that with the Sonics too. So just kind of roll it all the way through if we do, go on that. Yeah, great suggestion, Gunny. Evan, Brando, do you think JSN will end up on the Seahawks Mount Rushmore? Well, Steve Largent retired as an all-time wide receiver in the sport, probably not going to upend him. But again, he's doing this. His greatness has been ascended really quickly, and he's really young. And so if he can put a career together, it's possible. I think on your Mount Rushmore, you're going to have your Walter Joneses and you're going to have your Cortez Kennedy. I think there's a lot of argument about the next guy being probably Bobby Wagner would be your fourth or Kenny Easley. Certainly he could upend those guys, but you've got some guys that are really, really good players there. It's not just an empty fourth guy there on that point. So he's going to have to go well over 12,000 yards receiving to get up into that spot of things, but he's young enough to do it. It's hard to predict though, Evan, because he is only into year 3 at this point. Like you're going to get into the Mount Rushmore. You kind of got into get year 7 or 8, and NFL's hard to last that long, hard to predict that you're going to sustain that long. Great stream beef. Was fun talking ball with fellow Hawk fans. Well, thank you that, Gunny. Go Brenda, you should run for president. Laugh my ass off. Nobody beating you in a debate. Oh, you guys get me from time to time. Yeah, this is Caden Curry has 30-inch arms. I'm out. Pass. Maybe hold Seattle back a little bit on that one, but is he a power edge? You know what I mean? Bubba, you have a good one, man. Because they're B&B, they're dynamite. It's dynamite. Jay says, I think JSN will be the second best receiver in franchise history. He's on the trajectory, and I don't want to short sell him. The season he put up last year and the damage he did and the kind of year he put together, second to none in Seahawks history by a mile. And 24 years old, just 30 days ago, turning 24, already 3 years deep into his career in this way. He's got the time. He's got the time to go get it done. He's got the team, the time, the ability. It's possible. Coke and Brando, don't have to run as a Republican or Democrat, just run as a Seattle Seahawk, a new party for the people. Let's go. We've been looking for a new party of the people. We found it. Daniel says, maybe this is a boomer take, but I'll be a fan of the Sonics, but not much. NBA doesn't interest me much anymore, just threes or layups and zero use of mid-game or post-game. 20 years of b-ball passed me hard to watch. I'm in the same place. I've had my share of issues, and I haven't watched basketball since the Sonics left, and then you turn back into it and you see the things that you mentioned, hoisting up 3-pointers every which way but loose, and bad basketball to watch, and no defense, and flopping, and traveling, and it's horrible every which way around. So I agree with you. It's going to be tough on it, but seeing those Sonic jerseys, man, they're going to use the old color scheme somehow. They're going to pull you in. They're going to pull you back. Just when you were out, they pulled you back in. I get it though, Daniel. I totally get it. And there's a lot of valid criticism within that. There is. But these dudes are athletic and they can shoot better than any point in time in NBA history. That part's for sure too. All right, guys, let's hit the wrap up on that note. Thank you guys for the great discussion. Appreciate all of the support and donation trend. Thank you for that donut and banker many times over. Alex, Randall, Corey, Revenger, John Naylor, banker again, Randall again. HHG, appreciate all of you guys for all of your support here to this channel, which is absolutely second to none. I've got the greatest gig in this whole thing, and I really appreciate that. And I notice it every time I get to go live. You guys are just amazing with your support. The discussion was awesome and on point as ever today. No trolls in the house. We're just free flowing and rolling and trying to figure out this offseason, figure out these contracts, figure out again how the Seattle Seahawks team is going to get back to the mountaintop in 2026. Go back to back as champions, because why the hell not? And why not us? I appreciate you guys watching today. Thank you again for hitting that like button, for subscribing on up, as it does help us grow as we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. And you can help us get there today by subbing on up. It's completely free. Doesn't cost you a single dollar. We will be back again here with some more lives this week here, as we got the roundtable tomorrow on Tuesday night, NFC West roundtable. We'll see if we can come back here maybe Wednesday evening as well. So do tune in for that. Keep locked in here this offseason. I know the Hawks haven't done a lot of fireworky things, and there's been the contract extensions, some low-end signings, some retaining of free agents. Boring. I get it. Some of you are waiting for the heat. The heat's coming. I wouldn't sell you untrue. I wouldn't push you wrong. The heat is coming. A big deal is going to come down the line. Does it happen now? Does it happen before training camp? Does it happen before the trade deadline? Is there multiple deals that happen before that point that make you stand up out of your chair and applaud? Yeah, I kind of think so. But I think John's going to take it at his pace, and he's going to strike when the iron is hot. So have that faith, fellow Seahawks fans. Know that in getting these contract extensions done as you have now, you've solidified things. You've taken this off John's table, and now he can just completely set his sights on into this draft, into topping this team off, into making them even better, and to maximizing this roster to the utmost. So I don't have to tell you guys. I shouldn't have to let you know to keep the faith, but I'm going to do so anyway. Don't you ever forget. Don't you dare. Go Hawks.